Alright, how's everyone doing? Got a decent amount of stuff to cover. Today, federal budget came out not too long ago, a couple days ago. Kind of curious to see what the libs have in store for us. And a bunch of COVID news that I was read about. First, I want to touch on this story right here.
It's a symbol stoking division in Calgary.
It's concerning that Calgary police officers consider it acceptable to ignore a lawful direction they personally disagree with.
On March 30th, Calgary's Police Commission directed the service to remove the thin blue line patches from all police uniforms, citing the symbol's mixed meaning. For some, it's a way of acknowledging police and honoring fallen officers.
No, it's not. It's literally not. That's not what it is. And like, if you really wanted to support them, you supporting them getting vaccinated. COVID is literally the most dangerous thing towards the police.
But thin blue line imagery has also come to be associated with racism and white supremacy after prominent displays of the symbol at Black Lives Matter counter protests.
That's because it literally is a symbol. Of course they would be as that, like.
Tests.
We made it very clear that to racialized communities, Black and Indigenous Calgarians, the symbol is directly offensive and in exact contradiction to the idea that Black people's lives have value.
Calgary is far from the first jurisdiction to ban officers from wearing the patch. Edmonton, Ottawa, Toronto, and nationally the RCMP have all done the same. But with the support of their union, many Calgary police officers are refusing to comply.
Removing patches from the uniforms is one thing, but completely vilifying the symbol and its meaning to our people, which has been communicated, is very much another.
Calgary's police.
Bro, that's crazy. What? That's not even true, my guy. You're literally just using that stupid, dumbass rhetoric to defend your fucking hateful attitude towards, like, fucking minorities and other bullshit like that.
Police chief says the directive will be enforced, but not for 2 weeks, adding that the issue illuminates a growing distrust between officers and members of the police commission.
Our members are paying very close attention to the social media accounts of individual councillors, and the quantity of anti-police content that's being sort of posted, shared, or liked is.
I mean, like, of course, though. You're, like, literally fucking killing people that did literally nothing wrong, and you've refused to do your job when it comes to, actually doing, like, actually serving and protecting the fucking community. Like, what is this? I mean, of course it'd be coming from fucking Alberta, though. Like, why would it not be coming from Alberta?
Is really causing concern to the members.
There's going to have to be serious discussion, perhaps the sheer number of officers who are defying this. It's going to be incredibly challenging.
The Calgary Police Commission is standing by its directive, maintaining that sooner or later, all police service members will have to comply. Heather Urix, West Global News, Calgary.
And, like, wasn't it, like banned, though? I thought it was banned, like. You know what? I just say fuck it, like, get rid of it. And anyone who doesn't want to comply, I say fire them. That easy. Okay, let's move on to the.
The headline, $8 billion in new defense funding over 5 years, but the details are extremely blurry. $6.1 billion comes with a major focus on North American defense and modernizing NORAD, a pledge to continue with NATO commitments in Europe, and a major defense policy review to determine what Canada's military needs to be able to do in a changing world.
This budget will help provide the fiscal and physical firepower we need to meet any threat.
For them to now allocate $8 billion spread over 5 years is embarrassing. It is shameful. They're not even replacing the money that they wouldn't allow to be spent since they took office.
A senior government source says the lack of clarity is because more work needs to be done with allies, and Canada doesn't want all its cards on the table.
Well, I think it's predicated on the review. And I think the how this money is going to roll out probably is going to be a result of that work done at the front end. It's probably the right way to do it.
The big question, of course.
I mean, like, why can't this fucking money go to, like, other places that actually need it? Instead of, you know, using it to justify killing a bunch of fucking people that none of us know how to find on a map. Well, I should say Liberals service don't know how to find a map. Let's be real.
Will Canada get close to the 2% of GDP spending target set by NATO? It won't. In 5 years, Canada will hit 1.5%.
It sent a very different and much less forceful message to our allies, as well as adversaries, about how committed we are.
The new money means the Department of National Defense's budget will climb from about $25 billion in 2021-22 to more than $40 billion in 5 years. There are some specifics over the next 5 years: $245 million to support culture change, including modernizing the military justice system. Nearly $1 billion for Ukraine, including $500 million in the first year for military aid.
Government's planning to spend that kind of money on equipping Ukraine. You know, that's great, but it'd be great to see that level of urgency being put towards equipping the Canadian military.
Or, you know, people that are literally, like, fucking dying on the streets. That would also be a good thing to do, you know, and not engage in nonsensical bullshit wars that, you know, we literally got roped into due to our dumbass allies.
The government says Canada has now announced more than $1.2 billion in direct aid to Ukraine and up to
But, like, even we're not, like, too great about that either, because I'm sure we start shit too. Almost positive in that.
$1.6 billion in loans. And in the same chapter, the budget promises to clarify the Foreign Affairs Minister's ability to seize, forfeit, and dispose of assets held by those sanctioned. Think Russian oligarchs. Donna?
All right, Abigail, thanks.
Okay, but what about our fucking... What is this, man?
The leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, he's here in Ottawa in the House of Commons, I believe. Mr. Singh, good to see you as always.
Thank you.
My man.
I know that you had stipulated in the agreement with the Liberals that you wanted to see dental care very specifically outlined as it had been in your platform in this budget document. You got that. But there are things that I read in this budget document that immediately made me think, oh, is the NDP going to be okay with that? This is something normally that they would not be endorsing. And I'm thinking specifically of the more...
Wait, what? Why would they not be endorsing dental care? Oh, that's so stupid. Clearly you haven't really been listening to them.
More than $2 billion worth of tax credits for carbon capture and storage, essentially subsidies for companies that big resource-based companies that decide to pursue that. And then what happened yesterday with the green light of Bay du Nord, which will, you know, lots of arguments for it, understandably, but will have an impact on the environment, most certainly. What is the red line for you?
Well, these are two things that you've outlined that we are absolutely opposed to. We think that it's wrong to increase subsidies of fossil fuel companies. We had said really clearly we believe in ending those subsidies because we think public money should go towards workers, should go towards renewable energy.
He's completely right about that. Like, it 100% should be going towards the towards the working class, and, like, not towards, like, big oil and shit.
And the Bay du Nord project is an expansion of fossil fuels that's going to increase emissions in light of the recent IPCC report, which states we are failing in terms of action on the climate crisis and things are getting worse, and that we have to act.
I mean, like, it also doesn't really help, though, that, like, when it comes to the climate crisis, like, fascists have literally taken over that. So that doesn't really help either.
Now, both these decisions are the wrong thing to do. And carbon capture, in addition, has some questionable impacts in terms of will it actually work. So those are things that we oppose. We think they're the wrong.
And for those who don't know, the Bay du Nord, it's like for like oil and gas companies to drill off of St. John's. And yeah, it's just gross. We shouldn't. So
Wrong decision. They do not take us to where we need to be in terms of fighting the climate crisis.
So then, what does it say about your party and your role in this government if the Liberals feel that they can just do that?
Well, this isn't a Liberal. This is not a New Democrat government. This is a Liberal government, and the Liberal government's doing things that we don't agree with.
But you're keeping it in power with respect.
When we form government, we would have a different budget. We would have a New Democrat budget. What we've been able to achieve as in this.
And like it doesn't really matter that like the Liberals tend to side with the NDP on a vast majority of issues, because like the NDP only has like a certain amount of power when it comes to a minority government, so it doesn't really matter. Like they can push for some things, and like it gets either cut down or completely neutered on what they wanna do.
This minority government is listen to Canadians who said we need help. We can't
We
get
saw
our
the
teeth
same
fixed.
thing with CERB.
1 in 3 Canadians can't get their teeth looked after, and we said we're going to deliver for you. So we brought in the biggest expansion of public health care in a generation.
Honestly, like at this point, I just think the NDP should be pushing for like the Bernie approach. Like, why not? At this point, why not? Fuck it. You know, free dental, like way better healthcare services than we currently have. Getting rid of medical biases and racism. Free eyeglasses, free prescription medication, all that. Why not? At this point, why not?
With real help to get
Free
people the
dentures too.
ability to fix their teeth, starting with kids under 12 and expanding from there. We're able to get meaningful action on housing, far more action on housing than the Liberals had ever intended in this budget. We're able to significantly change the definition of what is affordable. Changing that definition of affordable has completely been a game changer in terms of the type of investments that happen. Initially, the Liberals' definition was 30% of median income, which resulted in, for example, in Montreal, $2,250 being considered affordable. We put in this budget, we were able to force our definition, which is far better, which is 80% of the average market rate. In doing that, when we apply that to the Montreal example, that would mean affordable would be $967. So that significantly changes the scope of all the investments. In addition, they had only accounted for 20% of a build being affordable. We've doubled that to 40%. This was clearly written into the agreement. This is our definition, and we did that to fight back against the crisis in housing in a meaningful way. So those two steps are going to be life-changing for Canadians. They'll get their teeth fixed, and they'll be able to find a home that's...
But like, we honestly should be taking the Swedish approach when it comes to that. Like, should be taking care of like our citizens and actually giving them the houses that they need, and not caring about what the fucking market value is. Like, I do love you, but gotta do a little bit more, my guy.
It's in their budget a lot easier. So those are some big things that are going to make life better for Canadians.
But they're also going to see, detrimental effects on climate because of what the government is proposing. And the leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Singh.
And $50 being considered affordable. We put in this budget, we were able to, we've made it a lot easier. So those are some big things that are going to make life better for Canadians.
But they're also going to see, detrimental effects on climate because of what the government is proposing. And you say that it's a Liberal government, but it's a government in power for the next number of years because you've made a deal to support it.
Well, we're going to oppose.
I mean, it's like not really like they had a choice though. Like if they actually had a choice and like actually had like meaningful power to actually do something about it, like I'm sure that they would go way farther than what they're able to do under a minority Liberal government.
Where we think they made a mistake or they've done the wrong thing or
But will it have a material difference?
Where they've made priorities that are not in line with what we're up against. So we'll oppose that. We will fight back against that. And we will get help to Canadians. Both of those things are important. And the agreement outlines that we will disagree, that we will oppose, and we will fight back. And when it comes to the environment, it is clear this government has made the wrong choice and continues to make the wrong choice, whether it's approving the Bay du Nord project or in terms of carbon capture and massive tax credits, which we think are absolutely wrong to do.
True. Carbon capture won't solve the problem. It just won't.
Just before I let you go, I do want to ask you about one other subject. And I've heard you in a number of interviews being asked about the 2% of GDP on defense spending. You said it was an arbitrary target. In your discussions with the government in the lead up to this, and I believe you said in your press conference yesterday or the day before that you have been briefed, did you stipulate that you would not like to see that path? Did you sort of, was it part of any kind of arrangement between you and the government?
We laid out our priorities and said that we don't want to see an increase of 2%. Funny enough, the Conservatives are complaining about increased spending. They would have.
The Conservatives always do that though. Like they whine, they bitch and moan about like every little increase when it comes to like actually helping out the fucking Canadian proletariat, but yet give shit tons of money to all these fucking massive corporations that end up hurting us, and repealing worker rights too. So like that doesn't even matter. Like they're gonna cry about anything.
They wanted an increase of $25 billion in spending in 1 year, not spread over multiple years. $25 billion is more in 1 year than the entire cost of our pharmacare and our dental care program, and they don't propose any revenues either. So I think it's very, very rich that the Conservatives talk about their concerns about spending too much when they asked to spend $25 billion in 1 year, far more than all the programs we're talking about cost. So
he's right.
I think that's a little bit of a contradiction.
He is 100% right. Dude, why are Conservatives so fucking dumb, man? Like, I just don't understand it.
But we laid out that we don't want that 2%. We don't think it's appropriate, but we do see a need to invest in the men and women that serve in our armed forces having the equipment that they need to do their jobs, in addition to understanding that the world does feel less safe and that we do need to make investments to make sure Canadians feel safer. And so we understood that some increase was appropriate given what we're up against in the world.
What do you base the assessment that the 2% target is arbitrary on? Germany just announced a whole ton, $100 billion of new defense spending. Other allies in Europe have also announced new spending. Allies have agreed to that 2%. It doesn't feel so arbitrary when all of our Western allies have said 2% is the target to go for.
Okay, so who cares? Because fucking Germany's doing it, does that automatically make it okay if we do it? Like, the fuck? The fuck is this argument?
What do you base that assessment on?
Well, for Canada, that would be a massive increase in spending. I think that that spending is just not something we can afford at this point in time to bump up to $25 billion just in 1 year alone. To do that all in one shot, I think is not reasonable, not something that we could actually afford to do. And many experts have agreed that it would require an entire rethink of the purpose of the Canadian Armed Forces. And so just increasing by that amount would just not be feasible. In addition, we did acknowledge those some increases would be appropriate, given how much our armed forces were able to do in this crisis to help Canadians in long-term care homes in that crisis, both in Ontario and Quebec. They were vital. And so,
yeah, remember when we historically, didn't help out those who lived in long-term care homes at the beginning of COVID and still fuck them over during COVID too? Remember that? Yeah, that was cool, right?
Increased recruitment for personnel and the equipment. We've heard lots of concerns about the equipment not being sufficient to do the work that they need to do. So we envision some increases being appropriate. Support to Ukraine, absolutely appropriate and necessary. So those were very important, prudent decisions, and we supported that. But we thought that increasing to $25 billion in spending on top of the the existing spending, it would not be appropriate and not be feasible for Canada.
At the outset of Russia's war on Ukraine, your party was not supportive of Canada sending lethal aid. Given what the images over the last week have shown about the war crimes committed in Bucha, in Irpin, has your party changed its position?
Well, we absolutely support providing Ukrainians with the weapons they need to defend themselves. We've seen horrific crimes, war crimes, humanitarian crisis, a violation of the dignity of life. It's been horrific. And it's unimaginable not to be able to support Ukrainians in their ability to defend themselves. Given what we've seen, we absolutely support.
So you've changed
supporting them.
your party position has changed since the war started.
I don't think anyone could have looked at what happened in Bucha, the horrific loss of life, the violence against women, against people, innocent civilians, bombing of infrastructure, and not think that Ukrainians need to be supported to defend themselves.
Okay, Mr. Singh, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much, as always, for your time.
Thank you.
Right about that. On to this.
Well, what you're going to see in this budget really is the government talk about three big themes. This is what government sources have been telling us. The first is the green economy. These are the Trudeau Liberals. They want to pretend they're green or be green. It sort of depends on which way you look at it.
No, they pretend to be green. Completely right about that. Considering that, they still give a shit ton of money to big oil.
Been a lot of criticism. They've not been green enough.
And grants.
But they are going to try with some more funding, likely to the tune of about $2 billion a year, to invest in a new green fund that will develop new green technologies, green transit, and so on. So green economy, that is going to be one of the themes. Second theme, and I think this is where Canadians will really be paying attention, is affordability and housing. We're looking possibly for at least $2 billion a year to be spent creating new homes, building homes in Indigenous communities. That's going to be an important component.
Okay, but I honestly don't think that they're gonna give a shit about that. Like they historically have never cared about those people, and why would they start caring now outside of like posturing?
And in fact, we did a poll last week with our polling partner Ipsos, and Ipsos found that was the number one priority that Canadians wanted the government to get to in this budget: deal with inflation.
And like this is one of the main reasons on why we should have like affordable housing. Do you think I care how much a fucking or the housing value of like some dipshit owning a duplex just to sell it out or just like to rent it out? Like I don't give a fuck about that guy. Like honestly, fuck him. Like because being a landlord is not a job anyways.
Deal with the high cost of living. The government's got that message, but we'll see if the measures are enough. But definitely housing and housing affordability will be a key component. And then,
honestly, I think what they should do is just like build fucking universal housing, right? And then where people are living right now, when it comes to like own housing that they're paying the bank for, they should, fucking make that public too. And then, it's the same shit with like the place where like people are renting as well. Like, see a reason not to.
And then the third thing we're looking for in this budget, the third theme, is what sources are calling Canada in the world. And what that means is what are we doing beyond our borders, chiefly with defense spending. Obviously,
what we're doing in a war outside of our borders, we're literally fucking murdering people. That's what we're doing. Murdering people and taking their resources.
With the war in Ukraine, there's been a lot of talk about getting Canada to boost its defense spending to the NATO target of 2% of GDP. Now, sources tell us that this budget is not going to get us to 2% of GDP. We're not going to be there. Right now, Canada spends about 1.4% of its national economy on defense.
Even like I think that even that seems too high for me. Like I honestly think it should be a lot lower than that. Like, bro, like this doesn't even make sense that we spend that amount.
It's going to increase, but it's not going to be 2%. So look for more defense spending today in the budget. There'll be discussions about that. And then others, advocates for refugees, for example, say Canada in the world also means, we still have a crisis in Afghanistan with refugees. Are we doing enough to deal with that? Of course, the refugee...
No, we're literally not doing enough to do that. Like, we're not.
Refugee crisis in Ukraine. We'll need some money for that. And then we need some more money for foreign aid to help others in the world less fortunate. That is the Canada in the world.
Yes, because historically we have totally cared about those who live in more dire situations than us.
Component, defense, foreign aid, refugees. So those are the three big themes. Minister Freeland will get on her feet at 4 p.m. Eastern time to talk about them: the green economy, affordability, and Canada in the world.
What did we see and what are we seeing in this NDP Liberal budget? Well, we are seeing out of control.
Oh man, time to listen to brain dead points and takes. Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
Spending, no plan for long-term growth or productivity. We are seeing taxes go up, which in the end, Canadians, everyday Canadians, will be paying for. And we're seeing a housing program announced, as in typical Liberal fashion, that will actually result in not one house built or one house purchased this year.
I mean, like, do you honestly care about that, though? Like, no, of course you don't. Like,
it is an irresponsible budget. It is a typical classic NDP spend and tax budget.
We've used our power, and in this budget, we've delivered on dental care, starting with children under 12. I'm proud of that. We know that so many Canadians don't have coverage and haven't taken care of their teeth. And when we spoke to a number of people, we've heard their stories and how this would be life-changing for them. We also know that people are struggling with the cost of living, particularly with housing. So another priority of ours in the agreement, we used our power to get more help to Canadians to find a home that they can afford. And we see that reflected in the budget with concrete steps that would not have been there but for the fact that we forced the government to deliver and we use our power to get people this help. We still have critiques and criticisms. We're concerned, deeply concerned about the approach on the environment, particularly the carbon capture, which there's lots of concerns around whether that is effective or not. But the idea of giving more subsidies to fossil fuel companies that are profitable is the wrong approach. We should use public dollars to invest in workers.
Yeah, he's completely right about that. Like, what we should be doing instead is we should be investing into green energy and nuclear energy, nationalizing our extraction industries, and helping the Canadians that, don't have what they need, giving them what they need, man. Like, how's that hard to understand for conservatives?
Just transition, real jobs for workers, as well as investing in clean energy, and that's not there.
All right, now let's watch what the federal budget actually is.
Bonjour tout le monde. Thank you, Marin, for those kind words and for your leadership over so many years on clean solutions. It's always great to be back here on Vancouver Island, particularly on such a gorgeous day. Reminds me of trips I made out here with my mom when I was really young, trips to visit my family in Brentwood Bay more recently, and trips out here with my own kids. This is a beautiful part of the country, and it's a great place to ground ourselves in the kind of future we're trying to build. I want to begin by acknowledging that we're gathering on the traditional territory of the Esquimalt and Songhees First Nations. I'm here today with Laurie and David, who, like all parents, are thinking about their daughter Alexandria's future. We are, too. Il y a quelques semaines, à Vancouver, on a présenté notre plan de réduction des émissions.
Really care, though? Like, honestly, do you really care? Like, you literally just gave... Like, you're literally just subsidizing fucking oil and gas and making them happy, like, fuck.
Pour de l'air pur et une économie forte. La semaine passée, on a continué d'aller de l'avant avec le budget 2022. We know we need to cut emissions. We know we need to reduce pollution. But one of the best ways of doing that is to get more clean cars on the road. As Laurie and David were telling me, their EV works great.
Okay, but, like, yes, the transportation industry does have a ton of contribution towards greenhouse effects and greenhouse gases. It's mostly due to, giant fucking corporations. Like, I think it's, 100 corporations are responsible for 75% of the pollution. So what you should be doing then is going after them if you really want to actually do.
And is much cheaper to power than their gas car. Too often, though, electric vehicles aren't in reach. So we're making smart, targeted investments to change that. First of all, we're making EVs easier to buy. We're extending the program of up to $5,000 to help people buy electric vehicles. We're bringing in new mandatory sales targets of 20% by 2026, 60% by 2030, on the way to
Wait, like $5,000? That's not, that won't even cover like half of the cost of electric vehicles. What?
100% by 2035. We're also going to make EVs easier to charge. We're building a national network of chargers on top of the thousands already installed or under construction. En plus, pour créer des bons emplois, on fait du Canada un leader en fabrication de véhicules électriques. On investit dans l'industrie automobile de l'avenir. On met en œuvre la première stratégie sur les minéraux critiques pour bâtir les emplois et une économie plus forte. On fait ça pour réduire la pollution, réduire les factures pour les familles et pour rendre notre économie encore plus forte. Tout ça, c'est seulement un exemple concret comment notre plan va favoriser l'environnement, l'économie et les familles. With this budget, with everything we've been working on, we're moving forward on everything from a new tax credit for clean tech to protecting old-growth forests to retrofits for people's homes. This budget and the emissions reduction plan of the week before is about real results for people like Lori and David, and especially Alexandria. Whether it's climate action or making housing more affordable, we're investing in Canadians and in our future. Happy to take your questions now.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And I'll start the period question for 20 minutes. You can go ahead.
Thank you. Mary Brooks, Island Social Trends. Hi. The Canada Health transfer was not a specific line item in the budget last week. And Deputy Minister Freeland said on the weekend that there was more of a plan and clarity sought for in those negotiations. So I'm just wondering what the federal government might have in mind in that context. Does it have to do with facilities, doctor billing rates, training for more personnel? And do you see a national vision for that?
Absolutely. There is no
All of it should be covered. Literally all of it should be covered.
question, particularly coming through the 2 years of this pandemic, we need more investments in healthcare. We need to make sure that Canadians from coast to coast to coast are getting the absolute best quality healthcare possible. During the pandemic, the federal government stepped up with close to $69 billion new spending on healthcare related. Much of it transfers to the provinces to be able to get through this health crisis that was the pandemic. But we know that there is a need.
Literally still ongoing though. You have a bunch of dumbass conservative premiers being like, "Oh, it's not a thing," and we're going to be getting to that in a bit.
Need for more long-term structural spending to go at some of the deep challenges faced by Canadians across the country in accessing top quality healthcare. That's why we're engaged in conversations with the Council of the Federation, specifically with Premier Horgan, to try and talk about how we can really make sure that money invested in healthcare from the federal government, because we are very clear there will be significantly more money from the federal government into healthcare. But we've seen in the past, in decades past, that just more money into healthcare, even from the federal government, doesn't necessarily lead to the right outcomes or better outcomes for Canadians. So this,
because it faces a structural problem. If you don't actually do anything to attack that structural problem, nothing's going to change. It doesn't matter how much fucking money you pump into it. Still got to attack the structural problems that it faces.
time we're sitting down carefully to talk about how to make sure that new investments in healthcare will deliver the results Canadians need, from better access to family doctors and nurses to primary care, more investments in the kinds of, well, we just did $2 billion a few weeks ago to help provinces lift some of the backlogs in surgeries that accumulated over COVID. So we're working hand in hand. There will be more money for healthcare. We just need to, all of us, work together to make sure that it actually delivers results for Canadians. Oui. Nous savons que nous avons besoin de plus d'investissements en santé à travers le pays. Pendant la pandémie, on a investi presque 69 milliards de dollars de plus dans nos systèmes de santé, dans des mesures pour protéger les Canadiens de la pandémie. Et il y a quelques semaines, on a transféré 2 milliards de dollars aux provinces pour aider avec les délais et les procédures qui ont été reportées à cause de la pandémie. C'est des priorités sur lesquelles on est en train de miser. On est actuellement en conversation avec le Conseil de la Fédération, particulièrement le Premier ministre Horgan ici en Colombie-Britannique, pour s'assurer que les investissements que le gouvernement fédéral va faire en santé livrent concrètement des améliorations pour les familles, que ce soit plus de médecins, que ce soit de l'aide en santé mentale. Les gens veulent des résultats concrets et on va s'assurer de pouvoir livrer ça pour les Canadiens.
Next question. Hi, Cindy Harnett at the Times Colonist. There's an expectation that there'll be protesters this afternoon at City Hall. The mask mandates and vaccine mandates are essentially over, and yet there remains this cultural...
They're not essentially over. There's a reason why it's not over is because, because of all these fucking restrictions being lifted, and it's been fucking spreading like crazy. Like, it's honestly not surprising. I fucking called it.
divide, if you'll call it, what would you say to those protesters today?
First of all, I don't know if this is a good thing, but I can't remember a trip to Victoria City Hall in which there weren't a few people expressing their concerns about some issue or other. And it's really important that Canadians continue to be able to come out and express their views, express their disagreement with government. Protests should always be legal. They should be legal in a safe and responsible way, and that's exactly what we're going to continue to encourage. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's on people's minds as I go to meet with the mayor and see people at City Hall. At the same time, I think it's important to understand that we've been through a couple of really difficult years, and it has led to anxiety. It's led to a sense of helplessness, a sense of frustration around governments having imposed mandates to keep us all safe. These are things that people are obviously going to be expressing,
And like the irony in that is like if they just waited until like after Easter, I'm sure things would be fine. But no, it was due to the dumbass hogs that were in Ottawa, going beep beep, that you have a bunch of these dumbass conservative premiers being like, oh, support them, so we'll do whatever they want. Like, I don't give a shit what 3 fucking Nazis think. Like, I'm sorry.
I think it's important to acknowledge that, even as we continue to remain committed to following the best science possible to keep everyone safe. And I know that's what governments of all orders across the country are looking at, how to move forward in a way that keeps people safe but gets us back as quickly as possible to the things we love to do. We know that the possible 6th wave we're on the verge of, that's hitting in some parts of the country already with this new variant of Omicron, is going to be another challenge for us to go through, challenge for our frontline health workers to go through. We need to make sure we're there to support them at the same time as we try and allow Canadians to get back to the things they love.
Next question.
Good morning. Prime Minister Rob Buffin with CTV News. When you were here in 2019 in advance of that federal election, you held a press conference like this at a construction site, and you were touting affordable housing and the need to address that issue. In the years since, you know as well as anyone that...
That's right, I completely forgot about it. Oh, it was so funny. And it's a different time back then. In the Trump era. Oh, man, so different. Thought I missed that.
Cost of houses has skyrocketed. Your budget addresses affordable housing, but critics have said measures like banning foreigners from buying real estate will make a very small dent, if any. Only less than 2% of houses in BC are owned by foreigners. What do you say to critics who say you're not doing enough to address the supply issue when it comes to affordable housing?
Well, I think first...
The supply issue. There isn't a supply issue. It's more or less bunch of fucking realtors and landlords holding on to their fucking housing so they charge out the ass for, you know, something that everyone needs. Like, it's ridiculous. And like, we only care about it because apparently, like, they create jobs or some shit bullshit nonsense like that. Like, it doesn't even make sense. I honestly say fuck the market. Market's ridiculous right now. It's probably going to stay that way.
First of all, Canadians right across the country, but particularly here in BC, know that the housing crisis is real. The fact that families, particularly young families, are working harder and harder, and instead of getting closer to that moment where they can buy their new home, their first home, they feel like they're getting further away from it, or it's receding further and further from them. That's not right. But what Canadians also know is that anyone promising a simple, easy fix to the housing crisis is trying to push something politically that isn't true.
I mean, but there is easy fix though. You literally just do housing first. Like, it's not complicated. People don't have a house, you fucking give it to them. And, you know, that's not hard. And like, just say fuck it to the market. Well, the market's dog shit. Roll anything. And, you know, just build fucking public housing. Like, it's not hard.
It's a complex situation.
And like, you know, not giving a shit what fucking renters think about it either.
It's going to require many, many different measures. And that's why what we've been doing since 2017 is moving forward on a national housing strategy with billions of dollars worth of investments that have helped millions of families get into new homes, that have helped reduce chronic homelessness, that have increased supply with a range of measures, including the Rapid Housing Initiative that has made a significant impact. But there is more to do, much more to do. And that's why in this budget, we're focused on three things. First of all, helping Canadians save more with a tax-free savings account that allows them to be tax-free on the way in and tax-free on the way out, up to $40,000 towards the purchase of a new home. Other measures as well to help them save. Secondly, we're moving forward on increasing supply because we know one of the challenges we have is population growth in this country hasn't been matched by an equivalent growth in housing supply.
It's because a lot of fucking realtors snatch up all that property and want their property value to be as fucking sky high as possible when, you know, we have fellow Canadians dying on the fucking streets and your government not doing enough, and nor the fact that, you know, fucking provincial governments don't do enough either.
So we are moving forward on a number of measures from the Rapid Housing Initiative to others, but specifically a partnership with municipalities to reduce the barriers that municipalities are seeing to creating new housing stock. It's billions of dollars. It'll go towards helping them shift zoning regulations, accelerate permitting, move forward on solutions around federal land that will allow for the creation of significantly more housing stock. And we're talking about doubling the new housing starts over the next 10 years in this country to really go at the challenge of supply. And the third element is stopping speculation. We know there are unfair practices from blind billing to blind bidding to other issues that are really challenging fairness in the housing market, which is why we're moving forward on a homeowner's Bill of Rights. But we're also, as you said, cracking down with a total ban on foreign owners purchasing housing in Canada for the next couple of years.
I mean, like, that doesn't really matter though. Like what, 2%? Okay. Like, yeah, that's bad, but like, it's not that big of a deal compared to like, you know, a bunch of rich pricks, you know, owning a vast majority of housing sector and charging up the ass for it. Like, no one can afford to fucking rent that.
And this is because part of the pressures on our housing market has come from people looking at housing as an asset class, as a good investment vehicle. Housing.
Bro, you guys literally do the exact same fucking thing though. Like, I imagine you have a fuck ton of landlords in your party.
should be about homes for families to be able to build a future for themselves and their kids. It should be about strengthening communities. It should be about creating an opportunity for people to grow their own financial stability. It shouldn't be about wealthy investors and corporations trying to secure solid investments for the future.
I mean, yeah.
These are all things we're working on. We have a lot in this housing plan, but that's why we know that we're going to see impacts in the coming months and years of this. Absolument. Nous savons que la crise du logement est sentie à travers le pays, particulièrement ici en Colombie-Britannique. C'est pour ça que nous nous concentrons sur une variété de mesures qui vont contrer ces défis. D'abord, au niveau de l'épargne, on va aider les familles à épargner plus pour pouvoir acheter leur première maison avec un compte de jusqu'à 40 000 $ non imposables et qui va aider avec d'autres mesures aussi sur l'épargne. Deuxièmement, on va travailler sur l'offre. On sait qu'il y a un des grands défis qu'on a au Canada, c'est que la population est en train d'augmenter plus rapidement que l'offre de logement est en train d'augmenter. Donc, on a un programme, dont un programme avec les municipalités pour accélérer le développement de nouveaux logements, que ce soit au niveau du zonage, des permis ou d'autres défis qu'ils ont en termes de bâtir du logement. On va être là pour les encourager, les inciter et être partenaire avec eux pour en créer. Finalement, on va mettre fin aux pratiques injustes et la spéculation qui est en train d'augmenter les prix du logement à travers le pays. Nous allons s'assurer que le logement n'est pas vu comme investissement, comme véhicule d'investissement pour des corporations et des investisseurs étrangers, mais comme opportunité pour créer un chez-soi abordable pour des familles qui veulent bâtir une communauté, un avenir fort pour leurs enfants.
Next question.
Prime Minister Richard Zussman from Global BC. SFU modelers found that BC would need to at least double or triple its electricity production in less than 3 decades to meet these electrification targets from both the federal government and from the province. This would be the equivalent of about 20 to 30 new Site C dams. How can the federal government help invest in these sorts of projects?
Just use your energy. Like, honestly, like, yeah, sure, there's been like what fucking instances where a shit ton of people have died being Chernobyl and the meltdown that happened in Japan. But fucking oil kills way fucking more people. Like, if you span over it, like, the amount of time that we've been using oil and gas, like, it's been way fucking more people.
Projects, or is nuclear?
And like in the instance of let's use Chernobyl for an example, as an instance of that, it was due to like very fucking poor management. Even though, you know, the fucking workers that work there wanted better, you know, like they knew what the problem was, told their managers about that, and they didn't do fuck all about it. Like,
Power, one of the options that will have to be looked at to meet these electrification goals.
Well, it's very clear, first of all, that we need to reduce our emissions and we need to reduce our dependence on oil and gas. If we didn't already know that, the conflict in Ukraine right now with Russia's illegal invasion is emphasizing just how much we need to be able to find cleaner sources of energy for our communities, for our country. We've already done, particularly here in BC, a lot of work on electrification, but there is much more work to do. As we get off oil and gas, we're going to need more electricity, and I know there are a lot of brilliant innovators here in BC and across the country leaning in on that. As a federal government, our role is to be there as a partner for provinces, for municipalities, for projects that are trying to develop the kinds of solutions that won't just be needed here in BC, won't just be needed across the country, but will be needed around the world. If we as a world are going to reach those targets of keeping global warming to under 1.5 degrees, these solutions we develop in Canada will be an essential part of how we move forward. And that's why we're there to invest in a range of pathways so that we can make sure we're not just protecting the planet, but we're creating a strong and growing economy for years to come.
But is nuclear on the table?
Nuclear is on the table, absolutely.
That's good.
Next question.
Hi, Prime Minister. Jake Romp of Victoria News.
Even with these federal rebates continued, electric vehicles, the upfront cost of them remains far too much for many young people like myself. I guess what is the federal government going to do in future budgets to make the transition more affordable for people who want to be a part of a low carbon economy?
Great question. This is a comprehensive plan we're putting forward that has a number of different elements in it. First of all, the affordability and the affordability challenge. We know that electric vehicles are more expensive up front, even if over the long term they turn out to be cheaper. We know people need that help up front, which is why that rebate that we put forward of up to $5,000 that we're expanding to cover more models and more types of vehicles will be helpful. But more than that, we have to increase the supply as well, which is why modeling on BC's very successful mandate, we're moving forward with specific targets of 20% electric vehicles for all new sales in 2026. 60% by 2030 and 100% by 2035. And with the kind of demand and the kind of solutions being brought forward by the auto industry, it wouldn't surprise me for us to reach some of those.
The only reason why the auto industry is doing that is because they recognize that there's a lot of climate action taken, and they're trying to get ahead of the curve so they can make a fuck ton of profit off of it.
Targets ahead of time because there is such a demand and such an interest in doing it, and we will see prices come down with those. On top of that, as we create programs for more heavy-duty vehicles, heavier trucks that will also be part of that electrification, we'll see technologies advance that will benefit.
Oh wait, brother. I won't be able to pull my fucking horses across the country in this dinky ass little electric car. Telling me that electric truck can keep up with my fucking gas powered truck? Crazy.
Consumers. And finally, it's about creating new jobs as well. With our critical mineral strategy here in Canada, we'll be supporting the development of EV supply chains in Canada, which will create more jobs, will create a growing economy, and again, allow people to be able to afford electric vehicles even quicker. So it's a comprehensive approach that is about going to where we know Canadians want to be in the coming years.
Prochaine question. Catherine Marlowe, CBC News. A question on behalf of my Ottawa colleagues. Your budget says you intend to save time and be more efficient with the asylum seekers process by making everyone go online to submit their applications. But refugee advocates and immigration lawyers say your existing online portal is full of glitches, often delays applications by months, and it is impossible to fill out for refugee claimants who may have trouble accessing or using technology. Why are you shutting them out of the process by getting rid of the paper route?
On the contrary, what we've seen over the past number of years is there is a need to be able to process quicker and more people.
Okay, but that doesn't really answer the question. Like, what about those who are like old as fuck and still seeking asylum though? Like, do you honestly think that they know how to operate like fucking tablet or something? No, unless you get one of the fucking woke grandparents who, you know, had their fucking grandchildren teach them how to use it. Like, oh, it's ridiculous. You're just trying to bar more people out of the country, you fucking clown.
We have some of the most ambitious targets for welcoming in immigrants to this country that we've.
Literally, the U.S. brought in more fucking immigrants than we did. Like, it. Bro, we're fucking losing to the U.S., and the U.S. is fucking horrible when it comes to immigration policies. Like, what?
Ever had with over 400,000 as our target this year. On top of that, we're bringing in record numbers of refugees from Afghanistan. We're responding to the incredible pressures in Ukraine as we continue to be a place of refuge for people fleeing violence from around the world. So there are massive pressures on our immigration system. We know that improving the digital portals will be a way of getting more people through quickly, but it is not meant to be a barrier to prevent people from access it. It's actually it's a way of enhancing the abilities and the pathways for people to be able to get through that process quickly and be able to come to Canada faster.
You know what? Just fuck it. You know, old people in like fucking Afghanistan or Ukraine and whatever the fuck, fuck them. They're almost dead. Let them die, right? Oh, it's fucking psychotic, man. That should still exist for them. Like, come on.
Nous savons que nous sommes dans une situation où on a besoin de plus en plus d'immigrants et réfugiés pour bâtir notre pays, pour renforcer nos communautés, mais aussi pour répondre aux situations de conflit à travers le monde. Nous avons un plan extrêmement ambitieux pour plus de 400 000 immigrants qui arriveraient au Canada cette année. Mais en plus, on a augmenté nos niveaux de réfugiés, que ce soit d'Afghanistan, que ce soit de l'Ukraine ou que ce soit d'ailleurs dans le monde où on voit encore trop de conflits. Donc, de créer des systèmes plus informatisés pour pouvoir avoir des processus plus rapides, plus faciles, tout en continuant d'être là pour desservir les gens qui ont besoin de plus d'aide ou d'aide en personne, va nous permettre d'atteindre nos cibles ambitieuses et créer un Canada plus fort.
We'll take the last two questions.
Hi, Prime Minister Dirk Meisner from the Canadian Press here in Victoria. A lot of my friends have electric vehicles, and one of their major concerns are there is not enough of the quick charging stations around. So how can people be convinced that there's going to be more quick charging stations built?
We know that over the past years, there have been a number of Canadians who've stepped forward and made the switch to electric vehicles, but continue to face challenges around quick charging station accessibility. We're seeing thousands of them being constructed across the country, and this investment in this budget is going to allow for thousands more. We know that is a key path forward on helping families make that final decision that it's time to switch to electric. And what we're seeing is more and more families are able to make that choice. We're making them more.
But like a vast majority of people afford electric tend to get used cars. Unless you make a shit ton of money, you're not getting a new car. Or unless you like subsidize it. Just give it fucking free. Like, the working class doesn't really, so they don't really take much compared to fucking corporations. Like, you'd be going after them. Like, I think at most it's probably going to be like a fucking Band-Aid. And then they should be doing as well, on top of going after corporations, they should be fucking getting rid of single-use plastics. Why else do you think a lot of oil companies are investing into plastic? Because plastic is made out of oil, and like 100% be going after them for that.
More affordable by direct incentives to families. We're making them more accessible by increasing the number of charging stations. We're making sure that the industry is offering enough electric vehicles to people by mandating targets. And we're also continuing to demonstrate global leadership in the production and creation of electric vehicles, including with a focus on critical minerals. So there's lots of things we're doing. We're seeing the demands for new electric vehicles skyrocket across the country. Everyone wants to be part of it, and this government will make sure that people are accessing it.
On va prendre une dernière question. Est-ce possible d'avoir la réponse à cette question-là en français avant, par contre?
On sait qu'il y a de plus en plus de demandes pour les véhicules électriques. C'est pour ça qu'on est en train d'aider, oui, avec les coûts, avec ces
Bro, there's so many fucking dislikes.
Aujourd'hui, qu'on va agrandir. On est en train d'aider en implantant.
I mean, yeah, that doesn't really matter, but
chargement rapide. C'est une responsabilité que nous avons qui va aider les familles à choisir d'acheter un véhicule électrique. Et aussi, on est en train de dire aux compagnies de voitures et aux ventes de voitures qu'on doit avoir des pourcentages très agressifs en termes de vente de véhicules électriques, ce qui va aider d'avoir plus d'offres pour les familles à travers le pays. On a du travail à faire, mais avec ce budget, on est là pour aider les familles à pouvoir acheter des véhicules électriques.
Sarah Exonos, Radio-Canada. Il y a plusieurs Ukrainiens qui n'hésitent plus à qualifier ce qui se passe en Ukraine de génocide. Êtes-vous prêt à aller jusque-là? Est-ce qu'on assiste présentement à un génocide en Ukraine?
Comme on l'a dit depuis plusieurs semaines, Vladimir Poutine est en train de cibler de façon directe et délibérée les civils, que ce soit des hôpitaux, des stations de train avec des gens qui sont en train de fuir, ou bien l'utilisation de violences sexuelles par leurs soldats de façon délibérée pour déstabiliser et démoraliser et détruire l'Ukraine. C'est inacceptable et c'est pour ça que ça fait plusieurs semaines que le Canada est un des premiers pays à aller à la Cour pénale internationale pour exiger des conséquences et une enquête sur Poutine et et l'État russe. Et en plus, on est en train d'envoyer des enquêteurs de la GRC pour faire un suivi, pour vraiment démontrer à quel point ce que Poutine est en train de faire est inacceptable. Et on va continuer de travailler avec la communauté internationale pour s'assurer que ces crimes de guerre soient punis. We have been very clear as we've watched with horror the terrible, horrific scenes coming out of Ukraine as the Russian military and Vladimir Putin is specifically targeting civilians in this illegal war, whether it's hospitals or maternity wards or train stations filled with civilians and families trying to flee.
I mean, that's just war, though. Do the exact same shit. So to our allies, like, come on. Granted, yes, it is fucking horrible.
This is absolutely unacceptable and abhorrent. That's why Canada was one of the first countries to bring forward charges or to bring forward a process at the International Criminal Court to hold Putin and his cronies to account, as well as dispatching...
Why don't we do that for America, then? They engage in a lot more fucking wars and horrific shit than Putin, so we should be holding America in court of contempt as well. I mean, it is good that we do fucking hold Russia accountable for this. So for fucking US as well as us, like, for committing, genocide against
RCMP investigators to help make the case for these war crimes and this systematic attempt to destroy Ukraine.
Thank you. This is Wednesday's press conference.
Merci beaucoup tout le monde.
Alright, let's make fun of Jason Kennedy now. How he might lose to the NDP. When it comes to the election, the provincial election in Alberta.
Jason Kenney is trying to keep his political career alive. On Thursday, Brian Jean, the man who lost to Kenney in the United Conservative Party's first leadership race, was sworn back into the Alberta legislature. He won a by-election last month, and his intentions now are pretty clear.
We know that we have some very serious issues, the most important being the NDP in the next election is going to get an overwhelming majority if we keep the same leader.
Brian Jean and former Alberta opposition leader Danielle Smith have both declared they'll run to lead the UCP before Jason Kenney's leadership review has even taken place.
They're both raising rural issues. They're both raising COVID restrictions issues. So that is clearly the challenge that Kenney is looking at. But there's a lot of moderates in the party who have also been upset with Jason Kenney's approach.
Frustration with Kenney.
I mean, Jason Kenney just sucks overall, though. Like, is anyone really surprised? Like, he's probably, like, the worst fucking premier out there. Like, it's... And, like, of course the UCP fucking run against him. Like, I don't think they'll win, honestly. I'd be very surprised if they did. But I just don't see that happening.
Could be why interest in this leadership review is so high. What began as an in-person AGM with a couple of thousand people turned into a virtual mail-in ballot contest after the expected attendance swelled to more than 15,000.
There's been a lot of unhappiness on the part of the rebels in the party about a mail-in ballot. I think because they are concerned.
Mail-in ballots lead to election fraud, brother. even though we have less fucking election fraud than the US does. Because, for the most part, we're not fucking as dumb. But we're still pretty fucking dumb.
Concerned that this is much easier to manipulate.
The RCMP is still investigating.
Fucking called it. Fuck, man. Oh, conservatives are so fucking predictable.
Allegations of voter fraud related to the last UCP leadership contest in 2017.
The lunatics are trying to take over the asylum.
Oh no, this is going to be great.
Kenney has spent recent weeks positioning himself as the moderate choice for Albertans, a winner who will lead the UCP to another mandate. The party now facing big decisions with little time to waste. A provincial election against a popular and familiar opposition just 1 year away.
Kind of like the PPC, right? Remember how they were supposed to be a big thing, right? But, they got less fucking seats than the Greens. Got none. Oh, imagine being fucking proud of, a bullshit party, but losing to the fucking Greens. That's just game over there.
Heather Urix, West Global News, Calgary.
Once you do that, you're just done. All right, and now let's move on to the worst fucking premier talking to the worst fucking Democrat.
Another COVID wave, the sixth if you're keeping count.
Senator and I share a vision of a future North American energy alliance. The outrageous invasion of Ukraine by Vladimir Putin's dictatorship underscores the need for democratic allies like Canada and the United States to work together closely to displace the world's growing dependence on dictator oil from some of the world's worst regimes. That is now a matter of international security, of a moral urgency.
I love the fact that he's using the fucking Albertan flag over the Canadian flag. Oh, that's fucking awesome. That's great.
As well. And so the Senator and I have had discussions about how we can work together more closely and certainly raise the profile in Washington, D.C. about the critical role that Alberta and Canada play in U.S. energy security. So
when you look at the relationship that the United States of America has with Canada, it's a family relationship. Sometimes we take each other for granted. But when you think about all of the natural gas that we import in the United States of America, 98% comes from Canada. 98% of all the oil that we import in the United States of America, 62% comes from Canada. Of all of the trade that we do by states, out of 50 states, 32.
What are you talking about, brother? That's all American. That's all American oil. Doesn't come from Canada. Where's Canada? I can't find them on the map.
States, you're the number one exporter that we export to. So we're intricately together and locked. The bottom line is, what do we do and how can we do it better? That's by basically forming this relationship. We're talking about this North American energy and climate consortium. And what it does, for the first time, we're able to use the resources that we have, because we do it cleaner than anybody in the world. What the United States and Canada produces, whether it be natural gas, whether it's extracting oil, whatever we do is the cleanest in the world. Whatever we replace.
Wait, what? What? No, it's really fucking bad. Yeah, you honestly think that fucking, Exxon gives a shit what happens there? No. They, do the bare fucking minimum. They fuck over the land and, plant, I don't know, fucking 10 trees, and then they call it good. Yeah, that's gonna combat everything, right? And, same thing with the fucking pipelines, how they're fucking dog shit and poison, a bunch of fucking communities' water supply, and don't actually face any fucking consequences for it. It's disgusting.
Place will be the cleanest in the world. So if you want to help the climate, use North American resources. Use North American energy.
Oh, man. If you want to help the climate, just burn oil. Just burn more oil, my guy. Just burn all the oil. Can't use the oil if it's not there, right? Oh God, no. I don't know where I found this video, but it's fucking awesome.
Right now, as Jason said, the horrific war that Putin has put on Ukraine is an atrocity. It truly is. And it's something I don't believe any of us can tolerate. And there shouldn't be a thing that we should be counting on or buying or supporting from Russia that gives them the resources to use in this genocide that they're committing in Ukraine.
Oh man, that was awesome. Oh, so easy. Listen, Kennedy. All right, now let's move on to a snowstorm that's been hitting prairie provinces in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and everything. Even though, you know, it's like, what? Almost like the middle of April. Like, crazy.
Shopping carts are piled high as southern Manitobans rush to stock up ahead of the storm.
Hopefully get things like milk and fresh fruit, and I'll see what else there is.
This morning I went and bought a small propane stove.
Some store shelves are already bare. No milk, eggs, or bread left. Lettuce and fresh vegetable aisles have also been cleared, and many
Fresh vegetables. Vegetable house. I've never heard someone pronounce it like that. Oh, that's fucking awesome.
places are out of bottled water as people stock up.
Basic groceries that we're going to need just in case we do get snowed in.
Everybody's kind of, trying to, get a little ahead of the game, but, got to prepare for the worst.
And to hunker down at home. For the first time in 25 years, school divisions in Winnipeg are considering closing down.
And I recently talked to my mom, and like today, she was sent home due to the storm and everything. I'm actually kind of happy that we got this storm, to be honest. I'm glad I only have a 2-day week to work, but yeah, no, it's just kind of crazy though. It's the middle of April, but we're getting fucking and some of the worst ones too. Apparently, ouch. Might be true. I'm not really too sure. I always are.
And getting ahead of the storm. And daycares are concerned kids may get stranded.
It's going to be crazy. So we're definitely keeping an eye on that. I don't want to host a sleepover for a bunch of preschoolers without their parents.
The impending storm is already drawing comparisons to a generational spring blizzard from 25 years ago that saw cars buried in Winnipeg streets and emergency vehicles.
I remember hearing about this. I remember my parents had to leave due fucking bad it was. It's crazy.
Vehicles stuck.
The priority is to make sure that all of our critical services don't fail. If we need to start stationing snow plows in front of fire paramedic stations so ambulances and fire trucks can get out, then that's what we're going to do.
While keeping everyone safe ahead of the holiday weekend. Brittany Greenslade, Global News, Winnipeg.
Well, Manitobans are used to winter storms. What's in store with this one? Global News meteorologist Ross Hull is tracking it for us tonight.
Hi, Donna. Well, a couple of features that make this storm stand out. The first, its potency, where we've got Arctic air coming up against warm air. We've got a powerful system with heavy amounts of snow on the way and strong winds. The second factor, the longevity. This system will be impacting southern Manitoba, southeastern Saskatchewan, likely into early Friday. You can already see the heavy snow through the Dakota.
Yeah, it's supposed to last until Friday, apparently. Started last night. It's gonna last till Friday. All of this area and maybe over to Thunder Bay is hit by it. It's crazy. It's mostly because of the low front though.
As the snow now starting to cross the international border as this system heads north. We've got winter storm warnings in Winnipeg, blizzard warnings as you head west. The visibility is expected to be near zero in these areas and heavier amounts of snow possible as well.
Yep.
Especially some of those terrain features like the Turtle Mountains and Riding Mountains. Let's take a look at this system. It intensifies as we head into tomorrow morning. You can see the tightly packed isobars representing strong winds. Those are areas of equal barometric pressure. A bit of a lull in the precipitation possible across southeastern portions of Manitoba into Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday evening, but the system re-intensifies on Thursday. How much snow to expect? For Winnipeg, it looks to be in that 30 to 50 centimeter range. Remember, I told you those surface features? Well, with some enhancements, some areas could see 50, possibly close to 80 centimeters of snow. And of course, we don't need that snow to melt quickly. It's the peak of the spring flood season. Thankfully, it looks like temperatures will not be warming up anytime soon, at least for the next few days, Donna, which is some good news. But first, we need to get through all that heavy snow.
Well, let's know. Global News meteorologist Ross Hull, thanks.
Yeah, it's crazy how much snow expected.
These guys came back for spring. They may soon wish they stayed south. As a blizzard bears down, Lisa Kopachinski is like many, preparing.
I'm going to go to Safeway and stock up on some groceries before this ridiculous storm comes on.
Check it out. It's already hitting North Dakota. This is one TV station's weather cam. Yes, whiteouts happen here.
The Colorado low has been on the map for several hours now.
But
yeah, it's crazy, man. I looked outside today and I could not even see across the street. Like, that's how bad it was. And it's supposed to remain bad and like bad tomorrow again too.
Environment Canada forecasts this may last a few days, dropping between 50 and 80 centimeters of snow in parts of southern Manitoba and Saskatchewan.
This storm has been described as historic.
This after a winter where Winnipeg and much of the prairies had near-record snowfall. Most of it is now gone. Still, words like historic are concerning. Historic is April 1997, Manitoba's infamous storm of the century. It shut down the province for days and became the flood of the century, nearly washing out Winnipeg. This time, provincial officials say
that's not even like going into like southern parts of Manitoba either. Like Morris was like essentially an island, from what I understand. It was just crazy. Like almost from what I remember from my grandparents and my parents telling me, if I remember correctly, like everyone had to evacuate the town.
Late cold snap should prevent a major flood.
By the time the snowmelt comes later April, most of the flows we see on the radar start to drop down.
Call it winter's encore. In southeast Saskatchewan, Weyburn is also bracing to be hit.
It's just kind of one of those things that you just kind of shake your head sometimes.
Yeah, Weyburn actually got a decent amount of snow too. It's kind of crazy.
Remembering the whiteouts, blocked roads, and power outages of that last historic storm, stores are getting shopped out, classes are being canceled, even an NHL game has been delayed, while dozens of flights in and out of Winnipeg and Regina are being canceled. So, good timing to get out now, especially if, like Karen Dietz, you have a ticket to Cuba.
You'll be thinking about it over a drink by the pool.
Of course.
You know it.
For everyone else, snowy times ahead. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
All right, so let's bring in CBC's meteorologist and science reporter, Johanna Wagstaff. Joe, we need your help here. Can you walk us through the timing of the storm?
Adrienne, the storm is really just getting started for central Canada. Through the overnight, we're going to see snow and winds ramp up for southeastern Saskatchewan and southern Manitoba. Near blizzard conditions are expected overnight and through much of Wednesday, which means near zero visibility. Let me show you the snowfall totals we're expecting by the time we hit Friday. And that's the key here. This is a long duration event. We might actually see snow ease off for Winnipeg and the Red River Valley Wednesday night, but then coming back in full force Thursday and Friday for totals that look like this, a widespread 20 to
My friends and I were very happy that we didn't have to go to work. It's great.
40, but big bullseyes of 40 to 60, even 80 centimeters as we get those easterly winds piling that snow up. And Adrienne, this is why we're calling this an historic storm.
Okay, that's pretty astonishing. I mean, as is some of the language being used around the warnings, it seems pretty clear officials want people to take this very seriously.
Yes, I'm really seeing that in forecasters' language. The consistency with our weather forecasting has been very accurate in the days leading up to the storm that is now unfolding. So high confidence that this is going to be a high impact event. And I'm seeing language I haven't seen before from Environment Canada, near certainty of highway closures and power outages. Environment Canada even posing the question in their forecast, are you taking this storm seriously? And I think there is a level of wariness this time of the year, especially this year. So this is going to verify, as we say in the business, and Environment Canada really hoping people take this seriously.
All right, Johanna, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, I ended up getting prepared by like doing everything that I needed. I got a ton of snacks to tide me over. I got some more pot and everything. Great. I mostly just like slept today because, you know.
We're in downtown Winnipeg on the corner of Portage and Main, which is the windiest corner in the country.
Whoa, this is what it looks like. This is what it looked like today.
And it's certainly living up to its name this morning. Winnipeg right now under a winter storm warning, with Environment Canada saying up to 40 centimeters of snow that could fall over the next 48 hours by the time this storm passes through. Now, 20 centimeters of that could fall today alone. People are being advised to stay home if possible, stay off the roads, and it's really going to be in the southwestern part of the province that's going to get even worse. They are under a blizzard warning.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
crazy.
they could see up to 70 centimeters, possibly even more snow in that area. And it's going to be the winds that are really going to be causing a problem, because they're going to show that blowing snow and going to cause that near zero visibility or zero visibility on many roads.
The irony is, like, I imagine some people still fucking traveled those roads today, even though, you know, really fucking bad.
Roadways. The RCMP already asking people to stay off the.
I mean, like, I'm fairly confident in my driving when it comes to it, but like, even I wouldn't go out in this weather.
Highways if they can. There are already many road closures, and the city school divisions have actually already canceled classes for all of Winnipeg's schools for Wednesday and Thursday. Now, that happened last night, and that hasn't happened due to weather since the storm in 1997, which this storm is already being compared to. Now, city services say what is critical right now is making sure that all of those critical services can still access parts of the city, that ambulances and fire trucks can still make it around. They've said there are contingency plans in place where they will put snowplows outside of fire paramedic stations just in case. Now, there are also already plans in place to open community centers if need be, if there are widespread power outages. People were advised to stock up on food and make sure their cars are filled with fuel and blankets and flashlights just in case, but otherwise people being asked to stay home. Environment Canada also saying don't be fooled, because there will be some lulls in this storm. It will calm down at some parts.
Yeah, like, it's been fairly calm like right now, but I imagine it's gonna come back. It's crazy.
But saying, you know, it is still going to happen. It is going to come in waves. So again, don't be fooled by that. Make sure you have plenty of supplies at home, and if you can, stay home where it's safe. Brittany Greenslade, Global News, Winnipeg.
Yeah, like it's just crazy. Okay. Now, move on to. I was right about last February.
Different cities, different provinces, but the same warning.
Or across Canada, doesn't matter where you are, it's very likely that Omicron variant, the BA2 sublineage, is spreading quite widely in your community.
Federal data shows reported infections peaked, then dropped this year, but they're rising yet again. And limited testing in parts of the country means the true number of COVID cases is likely higher. In Nova Scotia, where there is still widespread testing, the province is now averaging roughly 1,000 new daily cases, a new pandemic high.
I am deeply worried that people don't understand this is already here.
Saskatoon's latest wastewater testing shows a more than 700% increase in viral load.
More people are going to end up in hospital with, the stretching the already
exhausted healthcare system.
Already, hospitalizations are ticking up in multiple provinces, including Ontario, where more than 13.
It's ticking up in Ontario, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta. Kind of funny how it's all the fucking provinces that, you know, removed restrictions for the losers that were going beep in Ontario.
1,500 people are now in hospital. Emergency physician Dr. Steve Flindle says many of his recent COVID patients were unvaccinated seniors and people far younger.
I see a lot of kids. Like yesterday, I had at least a half a dozen kids under the age of 5, all in with fever and typical COVID symptoms. A couple had already tested positive on rapid tests.
To blunt this
Sag.
latest wave, the key message from Canada's top doctor today was get a booster shot as soon as you're eligible.
Even if you've been infected, you should get a booster, but you don't really need to get it until about 3 months out from your documented infection.
That advice is still meant to be layered on top of other precautions, like staying home when you're sick and wearing a mask, whether or not there's a provincial mandate. Lauren Pelly.
I mean, like, I've still been doing it, even though, like, the dumbass premier that we have said, oh no, you're gonna... It's fine, don't worry about it.
CBC News.
After 2 years of quiet Easter dinners, Joanne Thompson and Alan...
Yeah, so... As, like, per usual for, like, the last 2 years, we always see increased hospitalization rates when it comes to it around the holidays, and, like, Easter's no different. It's gonna be straining on the healthcare system again.
White are planning to spend this year visiting family.
It's very meaningful. The last 2 years, we've all felt it. It's really taken a toll on the family bonds, for sure.
In most provinces, masks are not required in most settings. Gathering limits have been lifted and physical distancing has all but disappeared. But COVID has not.
Let me just emphasize.
What I prayed for, brother, it shouldn't be a thing. It's gone, brother. Prayed it away.
All across Canada, doesn't matter where you are, it's very likely that Omicron variant, the BA2 sublineage, is spreading quite widely in your community. I would advise getting that booster shot and masking and improving ventilation.
Still, Dr. Theresa Tam stopped short of recommending provinces bring back mask mandates, something only Quebec and PEI are keeping in place until after the holidays. On Monday, Philadelphia brought its mask mandates back, anticipating families will gather for Passover and Easter. It's the first major U.S. city to do so.
Each individual is going to have to make their calculation of the amount of risk that they want to take.
For weeks, health experts have been recommending the Canadian government change the definition of fully vaccinated to 3 doses, not 2. Concerned our national number.
I mean, like, I'm already fully vaccinated, I'm boosted up, but needed, I don't mind getting a fucking... I do not care. I'm just sitting there for like half an hour. Doesn't really matter.
Numbers have languished below 50% for months.
When I see people in the hospital and I say, how come you've only had 2 doses? That's because they say, I didn't know I was supposed to get a 3rd dose. And that's frustrating.
The change is under review,
I mean, yeah.
So for now the focus remains on encouraging a 3rd shot. The National Advisory Committee on Immunization now says everyone...
You're still gonna have like a bunch of dumbass hogs being like, oh, I don't need to do it, I'm already like double dosed and like fucking healthy and shit and whatever. It's gonna be all the same lip service that they used before. Like, I'm not gonna be surprised by any of it.
Over 18 should get a booster, and Canadians 12 to 17 may be offered one 6 months after their 2nd dose.
Some people also think that, well, I just got an infection, so maybe I don't need a booster. We are recommending it.
Urging Canadians to celebrate, but with the expectation they'll use the personal protective measures at hand. Jamie Marucker, Global News, Toronto.
Okay.
Judging by the number of people foregoing masks at large sporting events here, Ontario seems to be over COVID. However, the numbers show that we're well into the 6th wave, with a recent spike in cases adding to the estimated 5 to 6 million Ontarians.
It's crazy though. Like, what? Like, shouldn't have this fucking crazy.
Who contracted Omicron since December. The difference from earlier in the pandemic, hospitalization numbers have stayed low. Still, one recent statistic is drawing a fair amount of attention. For a time, reinfection was considered rare. Yet over the past 6 months, almost 12,000 Ontarians have caught COVID for a second time, the majority between the ages of 20 and 59.
I think a lot of people were lulled into believing that, if they caught COVID, they would be fine forever. And the reality is, there's a few things working against that.
For one, he says the virus keeps mutating, so antibodies from one variant won't work as well for another. Also, only 47% of Canadians are triple vaxxed. And while it was originally believed catching COVID could provide years of immunity, recent studies have shown 4 to 5 months is more accurate.
We have seen that there is a benefit from being immunized against BA2. There's still strong protection levels. It's just that over time, your protection levels do fade from around 90% protection against BA2 to 80 to 70 to 60 over time.
On social media, the reinfection numbers have stoked the discord over vaccines, frustrating doctors who argue explaining immunity is about more than one statistic.
The immune system is very, very complicated, unfortunately. It's not as simple as you got it, you'll never get it again.
Studies are being conducted on reinfection, but any real data will take time to collect, leaving much of Canada in COVID status quo. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
Okay, so for context, like, we have had Black Death, which is very fucking bad, and the same thing with the Spanish flu. And, like, it's killed so much fucking people. Like, COVID is number 5, and, like, it's still ongoing. Like, yes, there have been, like, other ones that haven't been bad, but, like, 6 fucking waves, like, it's crazy.
Count is washing over the country. Ontario is the latest province to make a second booster shot, a 4th vaccine, available as early as tomorrow to anyone over the age of 60, along with vulnerable groups.
That's going to be really important for people to get that extra level of protection.
The move comes as hospitalizations have risen in Ontario from 611 2 weeks ago to 1,074, an increase of over 70%. And measurements of wastewater in Ontario suggests COVID levels are higher now than at any time in the past.
The wastewater virus is going up very vigorously indeed. It's a kind of an early warning system, and all across Ontario, especially Eastern Ontario, those rates are increasing very, very rapidly indeed.
But that is not causing the province to consider new restrictions. Amid increasing social contacts, the province believes...
Like, with the increased hospitalizations and, like, the 6th wave, like, undergoing, like, why the hell wouldn't you? Like, doesn't make sense.
Hospital capacity and ICUs can manage the surge in cases.
Knowing that we have the capability in our...
We'll see about that. We will honestly see about that. Like, I honestly doubt that. Because they said the exact same thing about, like, the last surges, too.
Hospitals to manage this. This is something that we are sure that we're going to be able to get through. There's no cause for panic, that this was anticipated.
But as 4th doses become available across the country...
If it was anticipated, then why the fuck did you release or remove, like, in public health measures, you clown?
It's not clear most Canadians will get it. Less than half the population has even received a 3rd dose. And as society opens up, at the same time a highly transmissible variant is spreading, 3rd shots are seen as the most urgent measure.
We've got to stop thinking of the 3rd dose as being a booster. This is really a disease that's turned out to be a 3-dose disease, a 3-dose vaccine disease.
Province by province, there is growing divergence on public health measures. Quebec is worried enough that it's extended its mask mandate for public places until at least the end of April.
We have to wait and see how the progression of this wave will
will be.
While provincial governments are approaching public health measures on different timetables, they remain in lockstep on their best advice to keep the pandemic in check. Don't discard those masks, and do get caught up on your booster shots. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Everyone should. Like, it's not hard.
Because we're not doing PCRs, we do not have a really good handle on the amount of reinfection.
But experts suspect reinfection is happening, given that 81% of Canadians are double vaxxed against COVID, yet we're still seeing a sixth wave. After all, it's not an impossible scenario, says the medical director of the Vancouver Infectious Diseases Centre.
It is possible to develop COVID after having...
Like, I don't understand why people can't listen to him, like, or to people like this. Like, just don't understand. Like, it's their fucking job to know this shit. Like, it's... I don't fucking this shit, but I'm gonna listen to the fucking experts. Oh wait, I think I found out why people don't listen to him. He's a fucking ex-supporter. Maybe that's why.
Recovered from it fairly recently.
As recent as 3 months, says infectious disease Dr. Gerald Evans, though it seems one sneaky variant has disturbed the status quo.
Before Omicron came along, we did not see people getting any kind of reinfection until about 90 days had passed. With Omicron, that interval seems to be a little bit shorter. It's about 60 days.
It's still a rare occurrence, and it depends on 3 factors. Immunologist Ali Abdesater says your age, vaccination status, and your immune response dictate reinfection. If you're a younger individual, fully vaxxed, and got a severe response to your first infection, you may get a hybrid immunity lasting almost 6 to 8 months. Bottom line, immunity from a vaccine is always better.
That concept that natural immunity is better is completely wrong.
As if it wasn't our...
Yeah, I don't understand why people think that either. Like, no, that's not how that works. So stupid.
Already complicated, Abdesater says the variant you caught may also affect reinfection. Recent surges in the UK and Denmark suggest those infected with Delta likely develop immunity from all other previous variants. But an Omicron infection, with its very different makeup, will likely only protect you against another Omicron, yet may leave you vulnerable to all the other variants. The risk of COVID-19 reinfection in children now also in the forefront, as Quebec sees worrying pediatric hospitalizations.
Last week, 24,000 children in schools across Quebec were out because of COVID. That's a lot of children.
All the more reason to get those above the age of 5 vaccinated, and a strong indication for the need for boosters. As for how long you should wait to top up your dose after recovering from COVID, NACI puts that number at 4 to 8 weeks. Noor Ibrahim, Global News.
Oh, I love calling it.
Shang-
I love being right. Now let's move on to the rise in case Shanghai, which I'm actually kind of surprised. All things considered, I think China has done a pretty good job containing it. But, because, you know, they still fucking do lockdowns and shit. So, let's take a look and see what's going on there.
Shanghai, considered the heart of China's financial sector, rarely meeting. Yet the streets are eerily quiet. 26 million residents are stuck at home, waiting for updates from the robot dog.
Okay, this is awesome. Like, low-key, this is awesome. I honestly, you know, with their advancements in high-speed rail and, like, this shit, I say let them fucking liberate us. I just let them do it at this point. Like, this is awesome. Like, fuck, why can't we have cool shit like this?
Dogs now being used to share public health information.
Yeah, it's a very strict lockdown. In fact, I've seen people calling it one of the strictest lockdowns in the world. We're not allowed to leave home at all. All public transport has been cancelled. You're not even allowed to leave the front door.
Wait a minute.
We're not allowed to leave home at all. All public transport has been cancelled. You're not even allowed to leave the front door.
China has frequently implemented strict lockdowns to control the spread of COVID-19. There are currently 23 cities under full or partial lockdown as China continues to strive to completely eradicate the virus, an all-encompassing strategy known as COVID-0, one New Zealand gave up on last fall. Epidemiologists now argue vaccines and mask mandates are more effective.
I don't think at this point, in fact,
And like, it's not just like China that's doing this either. We've seen a lot of East countries do this as well. Like, Japan has done it as well. Like, Vietnam has been doing it like a fuck ton. Good. Care about the overall, like they've had way less fucking have like, despite their proximity.
at any point, long-term lockdown is really the answer to, to responding to COVID-19.
Chinese officials, however, say they are unwavering in their goal. A small army of health officials was brought in to test nearly all Shanghai residents. And while over 20,000 asymptomatic cases were caught, symptomatic cases numbered under 700.
People, I don't think, are worried in China and in Shanghai about the COVID itself. They're more worried, I think, about catching it because of the hassle that it will cause. Because, of course, in China, anyone who tests positive needs to go into central quarantine.
The strain of the lockdown is starting to show, with a rise in social media complaints, putting into question how long the current strategy is sustainable.
But like, for
how long the current strategy
because of the hassle that it will cause. Because, of course, in China, anyone who tests positive needs to go into central quarantine.
The strain of the lockdown is starting to show, with a rise in social media complaints, putting into question how.
But like, they've done a severely better job than we have. Like, and like, even though like we're fairly fucking loose when it comes. Early, we were actually fairly strict about it, but like after wave 1, we were just kind of like, fuck it, why not? It's too hard. Can't do it. Like, I'm tired of it too, but like, it's just so annoying. But like, China has done a way before. See.
How long the current strategy is sustainable. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
I mean, they don't have like a bunch of fucking hogs dying from it.
The National Advisory Committee on Immunization, NACI, is now recommending those who are over the age of 80 or long-term care residents get prioritized for their second booster doses 6 months after their first. The advisory body adds it could soon expand the recommendation to include Canadians over 70. In the U.S., second boosters are already approved for those 50 plus. Experts say for the average person, 3 doses provides sufficient protection.
It will add a little bit to your protection, but essentially the idea of abandoning all other things and rushing out there and getting your 4th shot, that's not so important right now. Let's leave the 4th shot to those people who really need it.
Federal officials say they are reviewing recommendations for adults under 50 with guidance to be released in the coming weeks. Immunocompromised Canadians are already recommended to get their 4th shots. 47% of Canadians have received a 3rd dose, which many epidemiologists now believe should be considered fully vaccinated. Jamie Marucker, Global News, Toronto.
Yep. Okay. Imagine the recommendation. Under. Let's actually.
Cases of the avian or bird flu continue to be seen across our country, with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency now confirming cases of the H5N1 strain detected in southern Ontario, Quebec, Alberta, and Saskatchewan recently. Now, the sudden rise in cases raising concerns, especially among poultry farmers. But how much of a threat does this pose to the public? Joining us now with more on this is Dr.
That's have CAFOs to thank for that.
Brian Stevens, he's a wildlife pathologist for the Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative, the Ontario Nunavut region. Doctor, we appreciate this. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get into the numbers here. I mean, they are pretty grim right now. More than, 160,000 killed or euthanized in Alberta, more than 84,000 in Ontario. So the numbers continue to grow across this country. Before we get into the general impact in this country and especially for poultry farmers, do we have a sense of where this came from, the origin?
So bird flu is something that's very common in wild birds. We see different strains every year, similar to what we see in human flu viruses, where we'll see new strains show up every season. So this strain showed up in Europe approximately last year sometime, and its normal migratory pathway of the wild birds brought it to North America in approximately December of 2021. And this strain in particular is a little bit different. As you mentioned, it will cause high deaths and mortality in commercial poultry, chickens and turkeys, but it's also affecting wild birds, which is a little bit unusual.
So it's really not a matter of if, it's when and how bad. I mean, compared to previous years, would this rate among the top?
Yeah, so this is definitely a severe outbreak. As I mentioned, when we see this in North America, poultry farmers are definitely the ones who get hit the hardest by this. They definitely have a high mortality rate in these commercial operations. But the main difference with this one is the wildlife that's being affected. Typically, it doesn't cause disease in wildlife. A lot of these birds will live with the flu and just get very mild disease or not show any signs. But this one, they're actually showing.
Sounds like we gotta catch it, boy. Done a horrible job when it comes to everything else, but sounds like we gotta catch it, boy.
Clinical signs, and many wild birds are actually dying from this as well.
So the transmission between birds, what about to humans?
So it's extremely rare, luckily. There have only been a handful of cases across the world and none in North America that I'm aware of. But it doesn't appear to be a major threat to people at this point.
What about the animals themselves in terms of the impact on poultry farms? What are we seeing right now?
So poultry farms, it's definitely affecting them. So if you get a case in a poultry farm, then the CFIA will be called out. And unfortunately, all of the birds on that site will have to be euthanized. And then they set up control zones around there. So it can be quite devastating to the industry.
Given all of that, given the risk to humans is quite low, can these animals and even the eggs, can they still be consumed or no?
Yeah, so the good thing with this virus is that,
I mean, like, as long as you cook everything at a certain temperature point, you should be okay. But
that it is killed by heat. So as long as people are cooking meat appropriately and cooking eggs appropriately, then there shouldn't be a concern for it to be transferred to people. And that's not as big a concern when we're talking about poultry, because if, as I mentioned, if a poultry farm were to develop this disease, then those animals would not enter the food chain. But when it comes to hunters who are hunting ducks and geese, there's always a concern about whether or not hunters could pick this up, because it could be in a wild bird without them showing any symptoms. But the good news is that as long as the meat is appropriately cooked, then there's no concern for people to get it.
So let's talk about the symptoms. I mean, this might be obvious for a lot of farmers who perhaps are watching, but what should they be looking out for?
So in poultry, it could be anything from respiratory disease, so coughing, sneezing, anything like that. They'll get discoloration of the wattles and along their skin at times, and then sometimes neurological signs. And that's actually what we've seen in the wildlife is neurological signs. So a lot of these birds are having trouble standing, can't fly appropriately. People will approach them and they're not moving away, and they have these erratic head and neck movements.
In terms of trying to, I guess, prevent this from getting out of control, is one of the best advice is try to keep the animals inside? Is that one of the tools that we have?
Yeah, for any poultry farmer, whether it's a big commercial flock or a small flock, the best thing to do is to increase biosecurity. So that often is keeping the birds inside, away from any contact with wild birds. And if you can, just trying to have specific clothing that is only in the coop and not bring anything from outside inside to the coop.
All right. Well, we appreciate this. I mean, a lot of people are certainly alarmed by this news, but this really puts it in perspective. We appreciate your time and your insight. That's Dr. Brian Stevens, wildlife pathologist with the Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative. Thank you, Doctor.
That's crazy. Another fucking threatening people. Can't even handle one. Like, no shot we can.
As Ottawa teachers and students get sick and classes get cancelled, some say one measure could change the picture. This school board trustee is pushing to bring the mask mandates back. The school board passed the motion.
When our chief medical officer of
Oh, I was a little bit confused on where French was coming from. Yeah, no, I imagine like fucking parents are losing their shit over this. Like, it must be very fucking funny.
Ottawa wholeheartedly feels that masking needs to be another layered protection in our schools in this current wave of the pandemic. I need to take that seriously.
But Ontario school boards are on their own. The province is still resisting to bring school mask requirements back.
So we've not
They
seen
should.
any significant threat to the health of children.
In British Columbia, modeling suggests another wave is afoot, and this mother worries.
It doesn't feel safe for schools.
Her province was
Wait,
one
what?
of the last.
Why is it not fucking safe for schools to bring back mandates? Like, it's fucking crazy, man.
To adopt school masking in the previous COVID waves. Kayanta Martin's hoping they will bring them back for this one.
I mean, we should be taking care of our
Oh no, oh, I just misunderstood. No, she's in favor of them. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like,
kids, especially when kids under 5 are not vaccinated. They are lacking a huge protection that a lot of us have.
And in some places, just having a little more information is making the choice to mask or not easier for some parents. Toronto District School Board now tells parents of all the cases reported in their school.
You know, and it's still, I got some email and it's still children is getting COVID inside. So this is not like what you don't like, what you like. This is like important for our health. Understand now?
Does it make you feel a little safer?
It does. Do you know why you wear a mask?
Because I don't want to get COVID.
For now, if school boards
Aw.
don't mandate masking, some parents and kids are choosing to do it for themselves.
I mean, I'm the same way. Like, even though like restrictions were fucking lifted for, like all of March and like April too, like I still do it because I love telling people that I'm right
Diana Sumanak
and that I'm not
Johnson,
part of the
CBC
problem.
News.
So we are sending our kids to school and preschool this week. We're not doing anything differently, and we're really looking forward to spending time with family this weekend. My name is Rena. I am based out of Toronto, Ontario, and I have 2 kids, 3 and 7 years old. This year is going to be a stark contrast from Easter 2 years ago. 2 years ago, my parents waved at my kids through the window, and it was one of those heartbreaking moments I know a lot of us have experienced. This year, with everyone in our family being vaccinated, us knowing who is seeing whom outside of our own family, and just being really like open with our communication, we're excited to spend time with family. To be honest, I don't even know what the regulations are anymore. I've lost track.
Yeah, it's just crazy because like they say one thing, like provinces say one thing, and then they say another, and then you have a different like you have Health Canada saying something else as well. Like no one's cooperating with anyone. We could have had this thing under fucking control last year, and we would be out of this mess, but have brain dead hogs, you know, not wanting to follow it and like pushing a lot of like nonsensical bullshit, and it's really annoying.
Not doing anything that I consider high risk at this point. My 7-year-old, he wears a mask indoors right now, as do many of his classmates.
Same.
They are? Yeah. And my 3-year-old, they still have mask mandates for their preschool because they're unable to get vaccinated. I also have decision fatigue, like many parents do. I still think to this day there is risk associated with every decision we make. Do we go to the zoo? Do we go to take the kids to a baseball game? Are we going to say yes to a birthday party? We're going to stick to seeing our family because that relationship is really important for my kids and for the mental and emotional health of the grandparents as well.
Okay, guys, time to get ready to go to school. We have made the difficult decision to pull our children from in-person learning and move them to full-time remote learning for the rest of the year because we no longer feel that there are any reasonable community-level mitigations in Ontario at this point. My name is...
It's not just Ontario. It's like Ontario all the way to BC. Like for the most part, I think like every municipality is brain dead. Like from Ontario to BC. Like I mean, sure, there are going to be some that, actually have some brains, but like for the most part, like they're just ridiculous.
This is Mandy. I live in London, Ontario, and I have 3 children who are 7, 8, and 10 years old. In our home, I would say that we definitely feel abandoned by the provincial government and by the Chief Medical Officer of Health as well. We know that there is lots of evidence to support masking as an ongoing preventative measure. It's one of the easiest and most effective mitigations that we have, really. And so to decide to take them away as this wave is upon us and infecting so many more people, that to remove them is just unconscionable, I think. The situation that we're in our home right now, having the kids in remote learning while we work remotely as well, is absolutely not ideal. It is challenging and it's chaotic, and for at least one of our children, remote learning is absolutely not where they're most kind of engaged. If we had not made this decision, we would not make any plans to see family this weekend. And if our children were in school, then they would be essentially not just using, but exceeding what in our house we think is a reasonable amount of exposure. What I'm hoping for going forward...
I like her. I think she made the correct call. Like, full on, I think that she made the correct call to do it.
Is that through advocacy that citizens like me can advocate for bringing back some of the protective measures that we know work.
Except that, like, your dumbass hog, Premier, is, like, he's smarter than, like, Manitoba's or Alberta's or Saskatchewan's Premier, but, like, still pretty fucking dumb. Like, I think that you have done a phenomenal job to that.
So, folks right across the country are probably thinking right now about how to prepare, right, for the upcoming holiday weekend. So, we're going to bring in Dr. Peter Jüni, the Scientific Director of the COVID-19 Science Advisory Table, to give us a little bit of perspective on this. So, Dr. Jüni, the last time we were having this similar sort of conversation was around Christmas time, and the advice then was, rapid tests before you see family members. Is that what people should be doing now?
Actually, before Christmas, I didn't say that anymore. Why? Because we already had Omicron now. So we need to be very careful with the rapid tests. Only if you test twice negative, within a time frame of 24 to 48 hours, you can be sure, okay, I'm not having an infection, including an asymptomatic infection. So that's one of the issues. And of course, the other issue is we're in a wave. We have really, again, high numbers right now, meaning be selective with your contact. So who do you see? How Family One actually approached it, I felt this was completely okay. They're selective. They don't, go into high-risk settings. In addition to that, you can use rapid tests, but be careful. Positives you can always believe, negatives only if you do it twice and if you don't have symptoms.
Dr. Uni, let's talk about that last piece of the puzzle here. Can you explain what's happening with the tests? I think we've all heard stories of people who say, I am sick, I feel terrible, I keep testing negative. What's going on with this variant in the tests?
Oh, absolutely. We have a problem with Omicron and probably also with BA2 that it seems to be less sensitive. Our daughter had COVID in class. She's symptomatic right now. She already has had 3 negative rapid tests. I don't believe it yet. I want to see a 4th one. We need to be very careful. It's different now. It worked tremendously well with previous variants, not that much with Omicron. Therefore, just, take things with a grain of salt if the tests are negative and repeat.
And what is the story, if I may, with BA2? Again, anecdotally, we keep hearing that people are saying, you get sicker faster with BA2. The symptoms show up faster. Is any of that true?
Well, what we see is with Omicron in general, BA1, BA2 or other subvariants, they are fast, but some people get sick only quite late in the process. So it's, a high peak early, but then just a long tail to the right, which make things very difficult. It's certainly so that if you, have had 3 days, 4 days after exposition plus 2 negative rapid tests, you could say, okay, probably it's okay. But again, make sure that you space these 2 rapid tests 24 hours apart.
And just out of curiosity, Dr. Uni, what is the trend that we're seeing when we do talk about these variants and subvariants? I'm talking about the BAs, but also XE, right? What is the trajectory of COVID in Canada?
So everywhere, what we see now is that variants will just continue to evolve or recombine, as we've seen it with XE, and only those that are more transmissible will remain successful. Everything else dies out, and we already have a tremendously transmissible virus with Omicron, BA1, and now BA2. XE is again a little bit more transmissible. That's certainly so. What is also important just to realize, the virus doesn't care about severity. So it just will just point on transmissibility.
Yep.
And we will probably not see with XE that it will get much more severe based on that it's a recombination of 2 different Omicron variants, but we don't know yet. It's too early.
Okay, Dr. Peter Uni, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Well, here's a live look at Toronto this morning. We'll be keeping an eye on the provincial legislature today for any updates to Ontario's plan for 4th doses of COVID-19 vaccines. The province is among the latest to announce new or expanded plans for additional booster shots, with a focus on protecting those most at risk during this spring wave of infection. Let's bring in Michael Serapio now to talk more about this. Good morning, Michael. We're also getting some new guidance about 4th doses from the National Advisory Committee on Immunization. What are you hearing?
Yeah, you're right, Jennifer, and good morning to you, because as we talk about NACI, not only is it expanding its recommendation for 4th doses now, it is also recommending a rapid deployment on these booster shots, in particular for people, seniors 80 and older, and for those living in long-term care and in congregant settings. Now, up until this point, NACI was recommending 4th doses for moderately and severely immunocompromised people and for Indigenous people younger than 70. But again, it is now expanding the recommendation, and there are multiple reasons for this. Of course, jurisdictions across the country are or have already dropped requirements for protections like masking and vaccine passports, but there's also the circulation of BA2, the more transmissible subvariant of Omicron, and the fact that over time, the first 3 doses will wane in their ability to protect. So to that, take a listen to BC's Provincial Health Officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry, during a briefing yesterday.
We know that the older we are, the sooner that antibodies will wane, and the less strong our cell-mediated, those memory cell responses will be. So an extra booster dose right now will provide a rapid increase in antibodies, and we've seen that from data in other countries where this has been used, and will provide that spring protection as we're able to get back to more activities in the community.
And British Columbia has announced, Jennifer, that it will roll out fourth doses for seniors over 70, long-term care residents, and Indigenous people 55 and older. So you can actually see British Columbia, is going beyond NACI's recommendations right now, and so are other provinces. Saskatchewan, for example, was already offering boosters for those in congregant settings. Quebec already offering them to anyone older than 79. And as you said right off top, Ontario's health minister does say the province will soon give boosters to people 60 and older. So a lot moving on this file, Jennifer, as NACI now focuses on possible boosters for younger adults under the age of 55 and even for teenagers.
And Michael, as you say, this is all partly a response to that BA2 subvariant, and it even has some provinces rethink.
I mean, like, BC is doing the smart thing here. They are.
Thinking certain policies, provinces where most restrictions may have been lifted. What are you hearing on that front?
Yeah, and you're
like, I don't know if they're gonna like have mask mandates and everything. I imagine that they probably would.
Absolutely right, because as you say, a number of provinces have lifted the majority, if not all, restrictions, like Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Ontario. In fact, those are provinces that no longer have mask mandates. And Quebec and PEI, well, they were expected to follow suit, but masking requirements for indoor spaces will, in fact, now stay in both provinces, at least in this moment and for the next few weeks.
I love how it was like all conservative fucking premier-led provinces, and like everywhere else is like still keep in place. It's so fucking, and it's also frustrating too.
Take a listen to Quebec's Dr. Luc Boileau, followed by the PEI Premier Dennis King.
We're hoping that adding 2 weeks of this mandatory proposal will be fair enough, but we have to wait and see how the progression of this wave will be. It's still moving up, so let's face the situation.
There will have to come a time where government will not need to mandate these things, and the public responsibility will have to be something that individuals will have to take up, and I know they will.
It was Newfoundland's premier that I loved. It's great.
But, you know, we're not there yet.
So, PEI and Quebec will be keeping their mask mandates. This is in response to rising case counts and the BA2 subvariant. Those two provinces looking for at least another couple of weeks with this mask mandate, if not longer, Jennifer. So we're going to have to follow, keep following the story to see if other provinces will also bring back mask mandates. Important to note, though, with or without a mandate, officials across the country say it's still wise to wear a mask in most indoor settings.
All right, thank you for this, Michael.
You're welcome.
Okay, real quick before. There's Macron is facing stiff challenge from the right wing. Watch.
Marine Le Pen n'a jamais été autant en capacité de pouvoir gagner une élection présidentielle. Elle arrive aujourd'hui à un niveau d'intention de vote qui est élevé. Elle arrive aujourd'hui avec une capacité à pouvoir bénéficier de reports de voix qui sont assez élevés, que ce soit de la part d'électeurs d'Éric Zemmour d'un côté ou de Valérie Pécresse de l'autre, donc c'est-à-dire un candidat plus à droite qu'elle et une candidate qui est un peu moins à droite qu'elle. A priori, le vote barrage marcherait beaucoup moins cette fois-ci, parce qu'en fait, on a beaucoup d'électeurs, notamment à gauche, notamment issus des catégories populaires, qui disent en fait qu'ils considèrent qu'Emmanuel Macron ne constitue pas une alternative fiable ou à laquelle ils croient si jamais Marine Le Pen devait être présente au deuxième tour de l'élection présidentielle. Aujourd'hui, les électeurs de gauche considèrent qu'il est trop de droite. Aujourd'hui, les électeurs de gauche entendent les messages qui sont des messages d'ordre politique, d'ordre économique, mais qui parlent à leurs yeux plutôt à la droite.
The irony in that, though, is like France's left is like more left than like vast majority of like people that vote here. It's just crazy to me.
Qu'à la gauche. Donc c'est effectivement un enjeu pour le président de la République.
To a certain point. Like I vote for them, but I'm fairly far left though.
Mais également sur la capacité à pouvoir garantir une partie du pouvoir d'achat, notamment à l'égard des catégories populaires. On avait un président jeune, on avait un président dynamique, on avait un président qui apparaissait comme étant libéral, on avait un président qui parlait anglais, ce qui n'était pas très fréquent de la part des présidents anciens, et donc qui arrivait à montrer une forme de dynamisme de la France. Probablement que si jamais demain Marine Le Pen devait être président de la République, l'image de la France serait profondément modifiée, et on voit bien qu'il y a des acteurs internationaux ou des investisseurs internationaux qui se poseraient la question d'investir en France.
Son parti commence à s'inquiéter par rapport à la montée de Marine Le Pen. Voilà. Mais franchement, au début, pour moi, il était sûr de gagner. Hein. Mais là, on voit le score se rapprocher et Marine Le Pen peut être président. Hein, parce que le truc, c'est qu'elle a bien joué sa campagne. Elle parle beaucoup de pouvoir d'achat. Elle s'est concentrée là-dessus et c'est la priorité des Français, en fait.
Moi, c'était un soulagement quand j'ai vu qu'Emmanuel Macron était qualifié parce que c'est le seul candidat qui peut vraiment faire quelque chose dans notre pays et j'étais extrêmement inquiète par la montée des extrêmes. Donc Macron 50 plus, oui, il y a que.
I mean, I think the far left should France, but honestly doubt it.
Il n'y a que lui qui peut nous sortir de là et il a montré déjà toutes ses qualités diplomatiques avec la guerre en Ukraine. Et puis en matière d'économie, eh ben, son programme tient la route et que moi j'ai 3 enfants et j'ai envie qu'ils puissent vivre correctement dans leur pays.
All right, anyways, on to Philosophy 2 video that I've been wanting to watch for quite a while, since February.
Oh, it feels like I've had this mask on for so long that parts of my face have slightly changed shape. That's better. Hello, my name's Abigail. Welcome to Philosophy Tube, a show about ideas. I've got something quite exciting for you today, something that's been in the pipe for a long time. For the last couple of years, I've been volunteering here in the UK with a group of independent scientists and scholars trying to challenge pseudoscience. The group is called Challenging Pseudoscience. I wanted us to have a more exciting name.
I love leftist naming conventions. Really hit the nail on the head on that one.
But I was outvoted. We're all unpaid, and we meet at the Royal Institution, which is a charity dedicated to distributing scientific knowledge, not to be confused with the Royal Society, or the Royal Family. When the pandemic started, a lot of our work became about challenging vaccine pseudoscience and conspiracy theories and misinformation. We realized that people who have declined the vaccine are often made fun of, often talked about, but rarely talked to. So we commissioned some research to interview them and hear what they really have to say. Those interviews were fascinating, not at all what I expected from the mainstream depiction of this issue. So today I want to take an honest look at what they said, the philosophical arguments they made, the things they got wrong, and the things they got right. I feel a little bit like John Oliver. It's like, we wanted to find out what unvaccinated people really think, so that's exactly what we did. Also, as a hilarious bonus, that project, dedicated to giving unvaccinated people a voice, was funded with a grant from the Open Society Foundation, which means it was literally paid for by George Soros. I had complete control over today's script, and as always, I'll be citing my sources at the top of the screen in case you want to check anything that I say. I was not paid at any stage of the project because Philosophy Tube is independently funded by the fans at patreon.com/philosophytube, where you can sign up if you think that I do a good job. So now, without any further ado, welcome to the show.
My friends would describe me as funny, skeptical, and principled. I think something important about me is that I believe in social justice.
I'm not an expert on medicine, but it's just common sense, surely.
Everyone says we've got free speech, but clearly we haven't got free speech, because if we had free speech, then there wouldn't be all these people being shut down.
You have the right to do whatever it is you want to do.
I feel like I've been judged by everyone that's taken the vaccine.
Hey, this is going to be a very, very interesting video. It's going to be super. Can't wait to see what goes on.
The point of living in a democracy if you can't even choose?
The first thing I'd like to do is take you through the project and show you how it worked, so there's nothing hidden. We needed to find some people who are voluntarily unvaccinated, and I'm going to refer to them as voluntarily unvaccinated because, as we'll see, a lot of them aren't anti-vaxxers at all. Plus, I want to distinguish them from the millions of people who want a vaccine but can't get one.
My mom fell into this category for such a long time. So, like, I guess she just decided to get at some point. Yeah, well, like we did talk about like the main reasonings behind why people don't follow public health measures before, but I'm kind of curious to see what other people say as well.
Phase 1 was handled by a comms agency called Valent Projects. Valent logged on to facebook.gov and went to the most popular anti-vax Facebook pages, not people, they could find. They identified about 10,000 Brits who are members of those pages, and then grouped them by their age, gender, location, favorite My Little Pony, etc., along with the other Facebook pages they had liked, to get a flavor of their other interests. Valent found that the data clustered into 4 different types of unvaccinated person, and I've given them all cute little names so that we can keep track. They are Earnest Emilys, Caring Carols, Self-Improvement Steves, and Loyal Larrys. Don't let the names fool you, there was a mix of genders in each type. All 4 types are mainly white, although Emily's are the most likely to be people of colour, and I personally know 2 black Steves. There was a mix of political views too. Emily's are generally left-wing, anti-corporate pro-Palestine. Larry's are Brexit-supporting conservatives. Steve leans right on economics but left on social issues, and Carol is... she's a little bit all over the place. Oh my god,
Karens
I am
tend
such
to
an
be-
Emily, but I have Steve rising. Having identified our 4 types of guys, we then needed to find some who would actually speak to us. And this is where phase 2 of the project began, handled by a consultancy company called Telltale Research. Not to be confused with Telltale Games.
Aw, that's unfortunate.
Telltale sent out a survey to 40,000 people, got 700 responses, and screened them down to 10, 4 Emilys, 2 Carols, 2 Steves, 2 Larrys. Those 10 were then paid for their time as they took part in a whole ethnographic project over days, answering...
Why wouldn't it be 4, 4, 4, and 4? Like, I mean, I guess to be fair, like, they generally tend to have the same views, but like, these people will have, I think, the most variety in opinions and views, so kind of curious to see where it's going to go.
Answering questions, talking about life, asking their own questions, and even inviting the interviewers into their homes. You heard some of their actual words in the opening titles, though to protect their privacy, I hired professional actors to read those bits.
That's smart.
By the way, if you'd like to read Telltale's full, detailed report, there's a free link in the doobly-doo. Before we look at the results, let's talk about some limitations, just so we're being open. Now, I'm not a statistician, I can't tell chi-squares from cauliflowers, but all of our subjects were British, and that means their views might not represent the views of voluntarily unvaccinated people everywhere. Valent and Telltale tried at every stage to make sure the smaller groups they focused on were representative of the larger ones, but they had to work within the limits of budget and time, so a bigger sample might have been nice.
Okay,
Also-
that makes a little bit sense why it was 2, 2, and 4 instead of like all 4s or like 5s or something. That makes a lot of sense. It's due to budget.
all 4 types were constructed using only public data from Facebook. Again, to respect people's privacy. So there might be other types of guy out there that aren't on Facebook, or relevant things about each type that were hidden behind privacy settings. Another limitation is, we only spoke to people who are alive. For obvious reasons, we didn't speak to all those people who chose not to get vaccinated and then died of COVID. Although that would have been an interesting study.
Definitely would have
I
been.
realized this when I read about the self-improvement Steves. Steves are quite into fitness and bodybuilding. They like listening to self-help gurus and entrepreneurs.
The interesting thing about like Steve's that she's classifying them as, that I kind of understand where they're coming from, because like they like micromanage like every single little thing that's going into their body. So like I kind of get where they're coming from, but like some like fat guy who claims that he's like pro health and like everything like that, and like now you're choosing to just to watch what you're putting into your body. Like that's just crazy to me. Like, no shot, because like if you were, you would be like micromanaging like every single little thing that you took into your body.
They have a man up and do it yourself kind of an attitude, and that can be a very admirable thing. Unfortunately,
Just to clarify though, I do think that when it comes to those larger people, like I do understand that more healthy food does generally tend to be more expensive, and as well as like when it comes to like after work and like exercise, I do understand that there's a lot of hurdles you face after those as well, like the amount of effort that you have to endure when it comes to exercising, and a lot of other hurdles that are very tough to overcome.
Steve also applies this to the vaccine.
If it's a virus and you're taking care and your body's strong enough to fight the virus, why should you need something external to help you?
In this case, that way of thinking puts Steve in danger, because eating right and looking after yourself isn't what protects you against a virus. What protects you is having antibodies. Steves who are young and fit might be better able to produce antibodies than somebody who's very old, but there's no guarantee and no way to know until you catch it. There are stories about Steves who run marathons and climb mountains. They think, I'm fit and healthy, I don't need the vaccine, and then they die because they weren't actually protected. What
And
that
it's
means
sad.
for our results is all our subjects had one very important thing in common. They've all gotten lucky. At least for now. When BBC Question Time announced they were planning to have some voluntarily unvaccinated people on the programme, they got destroyed on social media. It was widely assumed that anybody who hasn't had it yet must be an anti-vaxxer or a conspiracy theorist with nothing valuable.
And like that's just not true. Like there are certainly different points of view when it comes to it. Like you have your Steves, right? And then you also have people like Mom who says she has like literally gotten everything else outside of like up to the point when she didn't get the vaccine. Yeah, like I just want there to be more independent or more research and stuff done. I did tell her that there was a shit ton of research out there as well.
Valuable to say. Now, as a TRA, it is LOL to see the BBC getting KIA in the QTs. However, our interviews at least don't entirely support that picture. None of our subjects thought that the vaccine contains microchips. All of them believe that the virus exists and can be deadly. Most of them support things like face masks and lockdowns at least sometimes. And
Yeah, which is crazy because like, I mean, you do have your anti-vaxxers, but those are just the very vocal minority. It's like the fucking losers that were in the convoy in February. Like that was tiny fraction of like people and like all that. It's just, you know, a lot of those movements and generally like anything like that tends to be overruled by the vocal minority, and we don't hear those that actually have a difference in opinion.
Most of them weren't against vaccines in general. However, they all had worries about this vaccine in particular. All of our subjects said they thought it had been rushed.
You can't.
And like to a certain extent, I do understand where they are coming from, right? Because like no one's heard of the mRNA vaccine. There was so many grants given to pharmaceutical companies to seed a vaccine, you know, safe and effective. That's the main reason why we mostly talk about like Pfizer and Moderna compared to a lot of the other failed vaccines that not passed even like human studies. But I do fully understand where they are coming from. Like I initially had the same concerns as well, but I ended up deciding to get it because, you know, I'd rather get it and not have to worry about it, because I knew ultimately it was going to be safe. And why the hell would pharmaceutical companies want to pass up a chance to make shit tons of money?
Can't patent an injection, a vaccine that quick and expect it to work, because if you could, then why haven't you done it before? You could have Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS, Down syndrome.
Except that a lot of that stuff generally tends to, like Alzheimer's and like Down syndrome and all that stuff, it generally tends to be genetics, so you can't really like create a vaccine for that outside, unless you were like to do editing like CRISPR.
You could have all these things. Actually, no, not Down syndrome. Sorry, I take that back. All these things, you could have a vaccine for each of them within a year.
And to be honest, I kind of wondered about this too. They did develop it quite quickly. How did they do that? Turns out the answer's quite simple. Imagine you work for NASA in the 1970s and they say, we need you to design a lunar rover, a car that works on the moon. You might be like, oh my God, that's impossible. That's never been done before. But then you'd sit down and you'd be like, well, I know how cars work. So it's probably going to need a motor and some wheels. Probably not going to need air conditioning.
Why not air conditioning? Think about people like me who, you know, go out in like sub-zero temperatures in like a t-shirt and shit. Like, feels so nice. I want that air conditioner now.
If somebody else can handle building it and getting it there and paying for it, I could probably design something. And it's like that with vaccines. We know how to make them because we've been making them for ages, and we know how to design a safe, effective trial of a vaccine. I can tell you from experience that the longest part of any project is always waiting for the funding people to email you back. So if you've got money ready to go, yeah, turns out you can actually do things quickly. So why don't they do it with other diseases? Well, good f***ing question, Carol. The answer is partly medical and partly political.
Yeah, no, it is very interesting. Like, I do think that like the political aspect in that does contribute a lot to it. But yeah, no, like, and there are some things that it can't prevent. But I do fully agree. Like, we should be tackling stuff like HIV and AIDS, like a whole bunch of other like preventable diseases that we can do. But like, unfortunately, a lot of them tend to get politicized for nefarious reasons because people want to weaponize it against certain ethnic groups or like sexual orientations or some other bullshit like that.
Medical bit is that if a disease is caused by a germ, then we can, in theory, eliminate that germ, like we did to smallpox, or stop it from spreading. But diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's are caused by the body's own cells degenerating as part of their natural life cycle.
And that's why it's like super hard to actually create something effective in order to do that. Like, it's really, really difficult to do so.
It means we can't really prevent it in the same way. Even if there was a cure for cancer, we'd still have to give it to everyone who gets cancer. Whereas with something like smallpox, I mean, we don't even need a cure for that because you can't get it. The germ is extinct. The political bit is something that philosophers have been talking about for years and our subjects were very sensitive to. Pharmaceutical companies, and the economy generally, are not designed to serve human need, they're designed to maximize profit.
Which I completely disagree with. I think that the government and the economy should exist to serve the people, and if it doesn't do that, that government has failed.
Also, the economy isn't controlled.
Which is why I'm super hypercritical, like, from everywhere from, like, dumbass conservatives that we have here to the NDP. Even though I love Singh, I'm still, like, really critical of them at times.
Democratically, so it's pretty hard to change the priorities. In theory, people can vote with their dollars. The free market is how people express their needs, and if there's an unmet need, the market will respond. But when it comes to global health, obviously that isn't what's happening. One of the biggest killer diseases in the world is diarrhea, which is pretty easy to treat, medically speaking, but it tends to kill people in countries that have very little money. So there's no market to sell treatments to. Vote with your dollars just means people who have no dollars get no votes.
Yeah, and it's really sad that, you know, people like that actually have to do that. Like, there are a plethora of different reasons why people die of diarrhea. It can be anywhere from dehydration to specific virus or a parasite or something like that. Like, it's really sad.
So that's why we're not doing it with every disease, because we're spending all the research money here. So trans women can buy Viagra. And the pharmacist can say, is this for your boyfriend? And we can go, you know what, let's say yes.
Hog would 100% be able to do so if they want. I do not care. I say let them. If they want to, I say let them.
Because medical research so often aims at the promotion of profits rather than solutions to the world's most urgent medical problems, a majority of funds focus on the wants of a minority of the world's population, those who are relatively wealthy. As a result, healthcare is often unavailable to those who need it most. In the case of COVID, there's a global market because the disease is global. So, yeah, the funding department emailed back pretty quickly. That doesn't mean that it doesn't work, or that you shouldn't take it. But you're not necessarily out of your mind if you've realized society isn't designed to be altruistic. This is a theme we're going to come back to. Another thing that
Completely
came up
agree.
a few times is subjects worried about the long-term effects of the vaccine. Sure, it's okay now, but what if in 10 years' time, people start having problems?
Again, I've heard family members, coworkers, whatever, about the exact same thing. Like, we haven't, hasn't been around long enough for any long-term side effects and shit. And then I explained to them, if there was long-term side effects, seeing them beforehand during clinical style trials, and they would not pass. That's what happened with a lot of failed ones. Why we're talking about, like, Pfizer, Moderna, mostly.
We don't yet know what the outcome is, the long-term outcome is for people. And especially when I'm seeing things about, like, infertility and stuff, I haven't had any children yet. At least let me have one or two before. Do you know, like, you say to me, like, you can't have any more. Oh, do you know what I mean? I just feel like we should be able to wait a little bit.
Science doesn't really deal in absolutes, because it's supposed to always be open to new evidence. But we can be very confident that the COVID vaccine isn't going to have any surprises long-term because of how it works. Your body naturally contains things called memory cells. They're made in your bone marrow, you've already got them.
Yep.
And kind of like a medical student who's just graduated, they can specialize in a specific disease. The vaccine contains a little piece of the virus, not the virus itself.
And I love when conservatives use this excuse in order to try and justify, when they catch something that's incredibly deadly and contagious, and use that excuse to not actually fucking protect other people by getting the shot as well.
Itself, it is crucial to understand that. And depending on which one you get, the mechanism is different, but the effect is that your memory cells specialize in destroying that piece. That way, if you ever get infected with the real virus, they can produce the specific antibodies you need to stop it. It's kind of like if you showed your body a...
And that's why when it comes to coronaviruses, generally tends to be more or less like spike proteins. Because especially with the new mRNA ones, compared to the old versions where you were injected with a weakened or dead variant of said virus, but with the mRNA ones, we can attack spike proteins or whatever. It's just so much easier and probably more effective too.
Picture of the virus, and you were like, watch out for this bitch, and your body was like, okay, cool, I'll remember that. That's also why variants can be such a pain in the ass, because the virus turns up and suddenly it looks a little bit different, and everyone's like, she looks good.
I'm just wearing some fucking shades, being like, who's that? They look different. Oh man, that's great. Damn, she be thick.
She gets some work done. The actual stuff that's in the injection vial gets broken down. So that's why we can be very confident there won't be any nasty surprises. Because after a few days or weeks, there won't be anything in you that wasn't already there.
Yep.
You know what they say? If you give a man an antibody, he'll eat for a day. But if you teach a man's body to make antibodies, he'll have an anti's body for the rest of his life.
What?
And you might be wondering, as our subjects did, are those memory cells as good as the ones that I would get from a natural infection? Are those antibodies as good as natural antibodies? To which the answer is, they're the same.
Yep.
Some people claim that getting vaccines weakens your natural immune system, but
which
that's
isn't
kind of
true.
like saying lifting weights will make you stronger, but it weakens your natural muscles.
Yep.
That's just not how it works. In fact, it's safer to get vaccinated because you can get the immunity without taking the risk of a serious infection.
Mm-hmm. That is 100% true. I'd rather get a jab and aim for I don't know, 5 minutes or whatever, than have a week of severe symptoms and not having a fun time.
Remember, we may not have a lot of long-term evidence on the vaccine, but we do have a lot of long-term evidence on being a corpse. Unfortunately, though,
Yep.
evidence might not be enough. So,
And that is true. You can show people the amount of evidence that you want, but some people just will not care. So I think taking a more empathetic approach to it is definitely a way better starting point. And some doctors will actually tell certain certain stories that either they've had or has had. There was a good one on Middle Ground that the one doctor, I think it was doctors versus anti-vaxxers, and the one doctor had said something his daughter had a severe illness and had a very risky surgery or something like that. So she could do gymnastics and shit, but he had faith in his daughter's doctor and was like, let's proceed with it.
So it's a good thing this isn't Science Tube. This is Philosophy Tube. I read a few studies saying that people find it easier to think critically if they're emotionally primed to be comfortable, so I thought it would be
I love her boots. I just love her outfit. Great.
good to get a little bit cozy. Most cases of cervical cancer are caused by a virus called HPV, or human pussy virus. In the early
Human pussy virus. Oh, that's fucking awesome. I love that.
noughties, a company called Merck developed a vaccine, which was great. It performed really well in clinical trials, so hundreds of thousands of lives could be saved. And maybe now my doctor can stop sending me letters telling me to get my cervix swabbed. Politicians in the US started proposing laws requiring teenage girls to get vaccinated before they could attend public school. HPV is sexually transmitted and you need to get vaccinated before you catch it, hence the focus on schoolgirls. And this wasn't anything new. Vaccine requirements for schools had been around for decades because they're an effective way of curbing disease, and there were very broad allowances for parents to say no. But it was kind of fast. Even before the vaccine was widely available, people were talking about a requirement, and that might be because Merck had spent a lot of money lobbying.
Yep.
The vaccine cost $160 a shot, so they were planning on making bank. They were already...
And that's unfortunately why a decent amount of people don't tend to trust like medical institutions, is because, especially in the US, they are lobbied like crazy by pharmaceutical companies in order to push their agenda in order to make profits. Like, it is disgusting. Like, so like I understand like parents' concerns when it comes to that.
Already pretty unpopular too, because a few years earlier they were caught pushing an arthritis drug that gave people heart attacks. The upshot was an unlikely political alliance formed between people who hate all vaccines, people who hate government requirements, people who worry about government spending, people who didn't like Merck, social conservatives who thought the threat of cancer would stop girls from having sex, doctors who sincerely wanted more information, and PE teachers who don't like you skipping class for any reason, even if it's to get vaccinated against a life-threatening illness. With all those different people trying to be heard, the discussion very quickly became about everything except the evidence. And I think it's important to bear that episode in mind today, because I've read a lot of articles that just repeat the evidence about the COVID vaccine in an exasperated tone. And from our research, at least, it doesn't seem like that's going to cut through, because of how unvaccinated people see the rest of us. Our subjects consistently said that people who get the vaccine talk a big game about evidence, but we don't actually read it. They think that we're getting vaccinated not because the evidence says so, but because we're trusting. And that's the point.
Or that we're sheep, or that, you know, I don't know, it's like fucking communism or something. Like, it's just crazy to me what the different variations that people use to try and justify it. Like, there's so many different ways that people go about it.
Part they object to. This tied in with a common view of vaccinated people as moralistic bullies.
I feel like I've been judged by everyone that has taken the vaccine. People call you selfish for wanting to make your own choices.
Basically, they've been told to get vaccinated to protect themselves and other people. I think they just want everyone to follow everyone like sheep, really, and just get vaccinated. Don't question it.
I called it. I literally called it.
Just do it, because everyone else is doing it.
And I've got to admit, at least in my own case, they've kind of got a point. All the science stuff I told you in the last section is true. But I didn't do any of that research until after I'd gotten my jab. I've had 3 doses at time of recording, and there's nothing wrong with me. Nothing caused by the vaccine anyway. So it turns out I was right. But I can't pretend like it was a rational Sherlock Holmes brain decision. I did just kind of go along with it. Our subjects realized something very interesting, which is that trust plays a huge role in public health. We can illustrate this with a little example. let's say that we design a healthcare system around the principle of informed consent, where doctors give their patients information and patients make their own decisions. Okay, sounds good. But suppose you're meeting your doctor to discuss cancer treatments or something, and they tell you your options like radiotherapy and chemotherapy. Should your doctor also tell you about homeopathy? I'm inclined to say no, because scientifically speaking, homeopathy is a load of old bollocks.
Yep.
You might as well tell you about pigeon migration for all the good it's going to do you. So, okay, informed consent just means your doctor gives you relevant information. But we've immediately hit a problem, because who decides what information is relevant? They can't give you a whole medical degree, or
Yep.
let you rerun all the clinical trials yourself. Even if you double check everything that they're telling you, at a certain point, you're gonna have to either trust or not. And some people are just less trusting than others. This is something that doctors have been pointing out for years. This isn't the first pandemic humanity's been through.
Nope.
And something that comes up in the literature from the previous ones is the need for the public to trust health authorities. Because otherwise people don't listen, even if the evidence is right in front of their eyes.
And unfortunately, when it comes to more like Western nations, there's generally a lot of distrust between the government and its citizens because, and like understandably too, because like all that the government does is like it just tries to make the giant corporations happy. So I understand, and like I get it. Compare that to like say more East Asian countries, for example. Like for the most part, they know that you know their government's looking out, right? It's like a little brother, big brother situation. Like they may not agree like everything that they do, but they know that they're trying to have their best interest in mind. Especially when it comes to like public health, for example.
You've got to have evidence, yes, but evidence alone is not enough. This is something our subjects were really sensitive to. One thing that stood out is they were all very distrustful of the British government, even the ones who voted for it. And anybody seen as close to the government was tainted by association.
I think when I listen to scientists that are paid or employed by the government, I find that quite untrustworthy because I don't trust the government.
As soon as I saw Matt Hancock and all these people breaking the rules themselves,
Yep.
I was like,
Fuck.
I'm not following them. If you're going to arrest me, arrest me.
All our subjects suspected that the government's pandemic response was just cover for something else, though they usually couldn't say what exactly. Larry's were the most specific, saying the government is using COVID as an excuse to give handouts to immigrants. If we look at the history books, there are actually some examples of public health being used as cover for something else.
The Tuskegee experiment, for example, like that is fucking horrific. Like, yeah, no, it's used for like government, like, or public health reasons in order to do horrific things, which is why a lot of black people have a lot of trust issues when it comes to Western nations because, you know, they were experimented on for like a vast majority of the time. Like, that shit is absolutely disgusting.
Take, for instance, this story about a bubonic plague outbreak in San Francisco's Chinatown in 1900. The morning following the death of Chick Jin, a 41-year-old resident of a dilapidated boarding house just after midnight on March 6, 1900, the San Francisco Health Department rolled out a full-scale quarantine of Chinatown, days before laboratory tests confirmed the initial diagnosis of bubonic plague, preventing the Chinese residents of the city from leaving the neighborhood, going to work, or going about their business. In this case, only, as it later turned out, 4 of the 35,000 residents of Chinatown actually had plague. In the following weeks, the health department tried to inspect and disinfect every home and building in the 12-block area, throwing people out of their homes, confiscating and burning personal property, and beating residents who were uncooperative. Chinese were not permitted to leave the area, though whites could come and go freely.
It's fucking disgusting, man. Why do people... Why are fucking always treated like shit? Like, why? But yeah, the majority able to do whatever the hell they want. Like, fucking disgusting.
In that example, public health was used as an excuse for racism. It's not the only one like it. America has a dark history of unethical medical experiments on black people that has undermined trust in their healthcare system.
Yep, the Tuskegee experiment. They wanted to test to see what syphilis would do. And there was medications that would help them prevent or help them with syphilis.
And lest we think that sort of thing is just in the past, in 1991 there was a coup in Haiti and refugees fled for the US. Some of them were HIV positive, and when the US government picked them up, they shipped them off and imprisoned them without trial in Guantanamo Bay. Under United Nations law for the detention of persons, this is called a dick move. Given this history...
But yeah, it wasn't just used for like Asian people. It was also used against gay people, right? It's like especially like conservatives, spread so much like fear and agit propaganda against them, like being like, gay people are like going around raping people, giving them HIV. It's fucking ridiculous.
I would say it's not unreasonable to be cautious about public health and civil liberties. Of course, the evidence clearly shows it's existing minorities and people who are already struggling who tend to get the boot.
Yep.
Migrants, refugees, not relatively well-off Larrys.
Yep.
But again, we have to go beyond the evidence. A lot of our subjects felt marginalized, even if they weren't the sorts of people that we'd normally think of that way. Some of them felt marginalized for being Christian, despite the fact that Christianity is Britain's official state religion. They had emotional experiences associated with marginalization, like hurt and loneliness and feeling misunderstood, without always having the material costs. But those feelings still shaped how they see the world. Like all people, they are drawn to perspectives and alternative media sources.
The H Bomber Guy video.
All people, they are drawn to perspectives.
They were really, really good. His measured response videos are just phenomenal.
And alternative media sources that validate their feelings. I hasten to add, this isn't because they're foolish or emotional. It's something that we all do. In a way, this issue isn't just about evidence, it's about the different things that count as evidence to different people. A lot of our subjects' problem wasn't with the vaccine per se, so much as the extent to which they feel the government and health authorities care about their lives, which is something that I can really relate to.
Yep, because she's trans and it's not really good. Like, she has my full support.
I met this guy at a bus stop a while ago, and he said to me, you know what? The doctors don't have a clue what they're doing, and neither do the politicians. I'm sick of everyone acting like I'm the problem when they're just trying to boss me around and make me jump through hoops and tell me what I can do with my own body. And I said, I agree with you, mate. It's hard being transgender, isn't it? I kid, but for real. Usually, if somebody says to me, my body, my choice, I'm like, hell yeah, take that estrogen. Get that abortion. Do whatever you gotta do.
Yep.
As a British trans woman who has to deal with the NHS, bodily autonomy is an issue very close to my heart, among other organs. So, emotionally, I sympathized a little bit when some of our subjects said it wasn't about trusting the government, this was just their choice.
People should have free choice. If you don't have free choice anymore, then you're living in a dictatorship. I would never criticise someone for having it, but I don't want to be criticised for not having it.
It's your body and it's your right, and you have the right to do whatever it is you want to do with your body.
Some countries are introducing vaccine requirements, and there are practical questions to be asked, like who enforces it, and how do you replace key workers if they quit rather than have it, and do you compensate people if they have an allergic reaction? But our subjects mainly focused on the moral question. When, if ever, is it acceptable to override somebody's bodily autonomy? A lot of our subjects seem to be drawing on an old idea from a philosopher called John Stuart Mill, who said that as long as you're only hurting yourself, you should be free to do as you wish. The only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community against his own will is to prevent harm to others. His own good, either physical or moral, is not sufficient warrant. He cannot rightfully be compelled to forbear because it will be better for him to do so, because it will make him happier, because, in the opinion of others, to do so would be wise or even right. These are good reasons for remonstrating with him, or persuading him, or entreating him, but not for compelling him, or visiting him with any evil in case he do otherwise. The only part of the conduct of any one for which he is amenable to society is that which concerns others. In the part which concerns merely himself, his independence is of right absolute. Over himself, over his own body and mind, the individual is sovereign. Or, as one of our subjects put it,
do whatever you want in life, but don't ruin it for other people.
This idea is sometimes called the harm principle, as in you can harm yourself, but you can't harm other people. Your freedom to swing your fist ends where the tip of my nose begins, as the famous saying goes. Sometimes it's difficult to tell exactly where that is, especially if the tip of your nose has recently been moved, but that's the idea. It's obviously very relevant to COVID. But this is not the first time humanity has confronted questions of liberty in the face of disease. In their book, The Patient as Victim and Vector, philosopher Margaret Batten and her co-authors discuss an old enemy, tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is very much the Lord Freezer of infectious disease.
Freezer?
We kind of defeated it a while ago, but it never fully went away. It's caused by a bacterium that's highly contagious. New strains can and do spread very easily. And like Freezer, every time you think you've beaten TB, it transforms. Treatment takes months. You have to keep taking the antibiotics every day until it's completely gone. And one of the big factors contributing to the evolution of antibiotic-resistant TB is patients taking the pills wrong. You take them for a few weeks and then you feel better, so you stop.
Yep.
And then you feel worse again, so you go back on. And then you go off, and then you go back on.
It's the same thing with, like, any other...
And off, and on. I mean...
It's the same thing with any other virus that does that. It's not just TB, but it's other as well.
While TB is like, oh, you foolish monkeys. In the 90s, there was an epidemic of antibiotic-resistant TB in New York City, and the authorities responded aggressively with mandatory testing, directly observed treatment to make sure people were taking the pills right, and even imprisoning them until they got better. These measures were not universally popular. It was pointed out that TB spreads in poor living conditions, so these measures disproportionately affected homeless people without really solving their problems.
Yep.
But on the other hand, it worked, 'cause we're all still alive. Learning from this story, Batten et al. Say that public health measures need to strike a balance between seeing infected people as victims and seeing them as vectors. People who need help and who have rights.
Completely agree.
But also people who pose a very serious threat to others and themselves.
I completely agree with everything that was just said there. Like, it's the same thing with mental illness as well, like, right? Because, like, they do have, like, liberty. Well, they're their own person, right? But like at the same time, like they can pose a threat, but we should be, helping them and protecting their stuff, like protecting them. It's crazy to me.
Whether or not they mean to. They say that Mill's harm principle relies on the idea of individuals separate from the general population. If you make a choice that only affects you, the government shouldn't step in. But when it comes to disease, the reality is we are all enmeshed in a filthy microscopic environment that spans the globe. A sneeze on a Tokyo subway can travel around the world in 24 hours just because people are breathing nearby. So there isn't really such a thing as a choice that only affects you. Batten says that's just not the right framework to understand how disease spreads. And it's true of COVID. You can spread it, whether you're vaccinated or not.
Yep.
However, and this is very important, vaccinated people clear the virus faster and are therefore less likely to pass it on. If you're unvaccinated, you're more likely to spread it. Maybe to somebody who can't get vaccinated, maybe somebody thousands of miles away, and they might suffer or even die. Alternatively, you or them could end up taking a valuable hospital bed. In deciding whether or not to be immunized, it may seem that an individual is only risking harm to herself, but she is also risking harm to others if she becomes a vector. She is seeing the situation from her perspective as a likely victim of the disease, but is willing to refuse immunization because she values something else, for example, spiritual salvation, or bodily integrity, or natural living, more than the risk of illness. She is not, however, viewing the situation from the perspective of someone else, another person who might be infected because she has not been vaccinated and has become ill. She is not thinking about the person who might want protection from her, or what, if anything, she owes him to keep this from happening. It would seem then that our subjects have been defeated in the mind dojo, hoisted by their own petards, by their own logic. It would in fact be good to make them get vaccinated, either with social pressure or, if we're strictly following John Stuart Mill, even with legal means. Bodily autonomy is all well and good, but what if our body decisions have a really big impact on someone else? That's certainly a concern I've been facing lately. However, as always on this show, it turns out that things are a little bit more complicated than that. Once again, we need to go beyond the evidence. According to our research, that argument about maybe infecting other people is very unlikely to cut through, for two reasons. Firstly, the harm that we do to other people by infecting them is usually unknowable. If you don't get vaccinated, you might spread COVID to 10 other people, or you might not. And unless you live in a country with very robust contact tracing, which Britain doesn't have, you're probably never going to find out for sure either way. It's hard to get people to realize they might be vectors when they can't see the harm they're doing.
As well as like the hyper individualistic of Western societies as well. That definitely plays a factor into it as well.
And they can't see that it will probably be worse than the harm that a hypothetical vaccinated person in the same situation might do. It's all a little bit abstract. This is something that philosophers of global warming worry about as well. As my friend Alice said, when you get a positive COVID test, you should get a little video showing how you got infected, like a COD kill cam. The second reason is a lot of our subjects feel they're already being responsible by wearing masks and socially distancing and so on. They don't reject the idea of helping others. Far from it. They're just mistaken about the best way of doing it. Or they think that by sticking up for their interpretation of freedom, they're actually benefiting society more than they would by getting vaccinated. And so, our research found that calling them selfish, or just repeating the facts, or shaming them, as some commentators are unfortunately fond of doing, or even worse, saying that if they die it's their own fault, was very unlikely to persuade anybody.
I feel like we're being treated unfairly in that respect because they're kind of not letting our voices be heard. And when our voices are being heard, we're being laughed at, like, you know, kind of put down.
Personally, I had a backlash from it in work, like basically made to feel really bad because obviously I'm a carer. I love my residents who I look after. I look after 109 patients and I was told, oh, you clearly don't care about them, which couldn't be further from the truth. But I felt really bad. I felt like maybe, am I doing a bad thing? So I don't want to make anyone feel like that either.
This is the Ebola virus. Not the real one.
A giant dick. Giant dick. Sorry, Abigail. It just looks like it.
Thankfully. But this is what it looks like. It's real nasty. Basically, it makes you bleed from every hole and then die. It's completely incurable, massively contagious, usually takes less than 2 weeks, and kills most of the people who get it. In 1995, there was an outbreak of Ebola in Zaire, now called the Democratic Republic of Congo. There had been isolated cases in rural areas for a long time, but it got into the main hospital of a major city and just consumed human flesh at a truly frightening speed.
Yeah, it completely destroyed the entire city. Like, it's crazy.
International experts came in to fight it, because if this thing ever went viral, it'd make COVID look like dandruff. If you're watching this, that hasn't happened yet. Ebola is a very...
Thankfully, it hasn't happened. There was the potential of it happening. I am very glad that it did.
nasty disease, but it had help, because Zaire was extremely poor. Before the outbreak even started, hospitals were sterilizing surgical instruments by boiling them in river water over a charcoal fire. And they weren't daft, they knew that wasn't ideal, but the staff hadn't been paid in months, and they literally couldn't afford to keep the lights on. Zaire was ruled by a military dictator called President Mobutu, who wasn't very nice. He got the job in 1961, and for the next 3 decades, he and his friends...
I wonder what happened. I wonder how he got it. I wonder what he did.
Literally just transferred public money into their own bank accounts, including billions in foreign aid. Rise and grind, entrepreneurs! Gotta get that passive income! Billionaire mindset, baby! He did this with the tacit endorsement of America, Britain, and Belgium, because he let our corporations plunder the country's natural resources. In fact, he only got the job because the CIA helped assassinate his predecessor for being too left-wing. So when I say the people of Zaire were poor, that's not quite true. They were robbed.
Yep.
And as a
A lot of the proletariat.
consequence, their healthcare system was just totally unable to deal with this little guy. Imagine living in a country where the rulers take money out of the healthcare system and give it to their friends. I'm so glad I live in Britain, where that never happens. I tell this story to show that our individual choices sit within a political context over which we often have little control. If you have, so far, voluntarily declined the vaccine, it's not your fault that many people in poorer countries haven't been given a chance yet. Governments and pharmaceutical companies refusing to waive patent laws is an overarching problem.
Yep.
It's also probably not your fault the healthcare system is running out of beds either, depending on who you vote for. Talking only about vaccination reinforces the questionable framework of personal responsibility, because then we're not talking about things like furloughs and wages and rent freezes and infrastructure. But we can think about 2 things at once. Our subjects may not have chosen their circumstances, but they still made a choice, and it's philosophically interesting to hear why they made it, and under what circumstances they might choose differently. These people are our fellow human beings, in many cases friends and family members. With a little bit of empathy, they can be understood. Nevertheless, their choice has placed themselves, their loved ones, and all of us in very real danger. It would be better for everyone if they felt like they could change their minds and get the vaccine now without being shamed for being late to the party. Many of them are genuinely conflicted and are looking for a way to resolve that conflict. I would guess they're likely to go one of 2 ways: either get vaccinated or become further isolated and potentially more politically radicalized.
or become that. Let's give up.
From a public health perspective,
And even some dumbass annoying left.
there's no question which of those outcomes is better. Patreon.com/philosophytube pays for all of this. Please do sign up if you'd like to support more independent content. If you took part in our study,
That was a great video. Definitely interesting to see. Like, I knew most of this stuff, but like it was definitely interesting to see a light being shed onto this. I like I said, I know people who have had this conflict on for a while and still have it going. So I get it, but anyways, I think that's probably going to be it for today. So, yeah.